Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Block. We've got episode 7 for you right now. It's been a little bit since we've done a show. Had to take some time off. Obviously, had a break last week, so we're getting right back into it and starting off with just a couple headlines today. And I want to get into the USFL is officially back, started last week. It was great to see football this time of year. Not really, in matters to the draft, but actual games being played. And honestly, it was pretty interesting to see the first couple games with the new technology they have, whether it's the air drones or even starting to potentially put trackers in the football for better reviews and spotting of the ball during the game. Obviously there have been a lot of other leagues that have been rebooted, like the XFL. That didn't last. Obviously, COVID came in and kicked them a little bit. But obviously, the USFL is started off pretty strong, got some decent crowds in a couple of their games starting off. So it'll be interesting to see what they do going forward. And it's just good to have football back, that's for sure. And then the next headline I'm going to go to is Kyrie Irving. Obviously, the big series between the Brooklyn Nets and the Boston Celtics. He did give the middle finger to a bunch of Boston fans during one of the playoff games after receiving a bunch of hatred from the Celtics, being a former player himself. He was fined $50,000 just from that action right there. And they're already down bad, being down 3-0 in the series. So I know Tim's going to talk a little bit about that coming up in the show. But other than that, I want to flip it right over to hockey. So let's get it, boys.
All
Sam,
right. How are you, Matt?
How are you doing? I'm doing good, buddy. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a few weeks now. Normally I'm joined by Harrison, but so this week we have Matt with me on. So we're excited. We're going to talk about a couple sleepers in each conference. We're each going to give our picks for a team we think could win the cup, but isn't necessarily talked about as one of the favorites. So let's start off. We'll start off in the East. I think my first pick is going to be the Boston Bruins. And Boston, they're an insane team. Defensively, they are the best team in the league, and they just added Hampus Lindholm at the deadline. They are stacked on the blue line. And offensively, they absolutely have enough firepower. They still have that perfection line going with Pastrnak, Marchand, Bergeron, and Taylor Hall also rounds out that group. It is a tough team to beat. I know they're a wild card right now. Whatever one seed has to play them first round, I know they're not looking forward to it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And, just myself, I mean, I was growing up in Buffalo. I was a Sabres fan. So I got to see the Bruins play quite a bit. And if anything, I know year in and year out, if they don't necessarily have like the best roster on paper at the start of the year, the reason they're going to beat you is because of their physicality. And that matters most when it comes to the playoffs, especially at the defense position. I remember those years, obviously, when they had Zdeno Chara, he was always a problem to deal with. And so I think going forward, obviously, this is a team that has the opportunity to make some noise. The only thing that I'm kind of optimistic about here is, even though they're older, are they going to be able to keep up with the young talent of these other teams that are higher seeded in the league? That's my only concern, because at the end of the day, we all know that they have some of the top players in the NHL. Like you think of Bergeron right now, Marchand, he's that rat that everybody hates. Would love to have him on your team, but he's going to make some noise in the playoffs. That's his type of game. And then, like you said, Pastrnak, Taylor Hall, those are the type of guys that are going to be able to impact the scoring right off the bat into the playoffs. But I think really their physicality would be the ultimate, defying factor of them moving on and potentially taking down a 1 seed. So I do agree with you to some point, but at the end of the day, I do feel like whoever they face off at the beginning, they just might not have the speed, the total young power of getting by that first round. But for me personally, I don't know. It's kind of a coin toss for me at this point.
Mm-hmm. You make a good point. They are an older team, but I think in the playoffs that maybe comes to their advantage. They have the veteran leadership. They've been around. Some of these players have won a cup. Like
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah, it was 2011, I think, on the back of the Tim Thomas run. Unbelievable. But their goalie play has also been outstanding. Jeremy Swayman and Linus Ullmark. I mean, those are two that have come out of nowhere to be an absolutely outstanding goalie tandem with Tuukka Rask retiring. I don't think they were expecting that, and I don't think they realized they were in a position that they are right now to be competitive for another year. When I thought maybe everyone could have agreed they were winding down, maybe looking towards the future. They don't think that. It doesn't seem like they're ready to. I think right now this core has one more shot, and this could be the year.
Yeah, like we said, or like I said, for me, it's a flip of the coin right now. And that being said, I'm going to get into my team. Probably
Absolutely.
not a fan favorite whatsoever, but it's the Washington Capitals. And the reason why I'm going with them, because like everybody, I would think most hockey fans are going to be like, nope, this is just a dumb pick. Do not take it. Will not work out. But anytime you've got Ovechkin out there, I feel like he's solely a man that can just win you a playoff series. And I think they've had a pretty decent lineup. Obviously, they're not the team that's making the superstar plays right now or blowing out teams left and right. But I just think, like you were kind of saying, with a little veteran presence, I think they kind of are going to take that underdog mentality and really make some noise. Obviously, they brought back Marcus Johansson, Connor Sheary, or sorry, not Connor Sheary. Johansson was there previously, but I mean, they still have some veteran guys in there. They've got Kuznetsov, Backstrom, Wilson still there, and everybody hates Tom Wilson, but he is going to give you that physicality in the playoffs, which basically is going to matter the most. And I know it's pretty easy for referees to throw up the arm anytime Wilson gives a hit, even if it's a clean hit, a dirty hit, whatever it is, they want to take him out of the game. But, when it comes to playoff hockey, they tend to lower it a little bit. So I think it's going to be a pretty interesting matchup going forward. Their goalie play hasn't been phenomenal, great at times. But I think just for the leadership that Ovechkin brings to this team, and I think once they hit the playoffs, it really is a story. It's a storyboard that's in the making. It's a script. Once that first couple games of that first series goes by, you'll truly know if a team's going to be able to hang on or be able to come back from a series win. I think that's going to be the determining factor for their goalie play, especially. But other than that, though, I kind of like their defensive pairings a little bit. I mean, you still got John Carlson there. They got Trevor Van Riemsdyk, not a bad addition as your third line pairing, but I do think that they are able. I think they're always able to. I think with the leadership they have, I think they're always able to get at least that first potential knockout. Being a 1 seed, though, that they'll go against, I don't know if it's going to happen, but I'm feeling bold about this one.
You make a good point with the leadership and the veteran presence they have. That is one thing they have going for them. Another thing they really have going right now is they are hot as any team in the league. They have been on a tear recently. They have been beating the best teams in the league, and going into the playoffs, that's really what you want. I just don't believe in their defense or their goaltending. John Carlson is
that's exactly what I thought everybody would say. It's like, oh no, the goaltending defense is not there. I just got a little hunch. I'm feeling something. I'm feeling something on the back. I think something's going to come out. And I mean, my goodness, I know it's just regular season, but Ovechkin with 50 goals again. I mean, as long as they get a couple power plays each game, if he's in his spot, he'll get at least a couple throughout the first series. If they get by into the next series, that's a different story. But I'm not counting out the grade 8. I'm not. Not in round 1, even though it looks like between the Panthers and I believe the Canes, it's going to be a hard matchup to get by.
I think they do need to get maybe into the 3 seed in the Central for them to have a shot, or the Metro. I'm sorry, not the Central. If they get ahead of Pittsburgh and they play
any team that goes against the Panthers, and we're about to get into that, but any team that goes against the Panthers in the first round, good luck. Unless it's Tampa Bay for some reason, but they're not dropping. So
no,
yeah. Not. All right. Well, how about your pick from the West?
Well, from the West, I think St. Louis is the team to watch out for. Early in the year they were very, very good, and I think maybe that was a little bit of fool's gold. They weren't really as good as their record showed. But in the month of April, they're 11-0-2. Just that record alone, I think, going into the playoffs is really, really encouraging for any St. Louis fan. Their defense has been okay, but goaltending has been wonderful. Ville Husso has been a revelation back there, and I think they have enough firepower with Tarasenko having a great year. Braden Shen-Buchnevich was a great pick in the offseason. I think they have enough back there that they can make another run, theoretically, like they did with Binnington in 2019. They could really do the same kind of thing. It's possible. I wouldn't bet on it, but of any non-favorites in the West, I think they have the best shot.
I think anytime that you have a recent team that has won a cup and you retain a good chunk of that same team, I think you're going to have an opportunity. Me personally, I don't think they're going to be able to go forward pretty far. I just think at least their path to getting to the cup is going to be a little difficult. I'm not dissing on anybody. I think some of their guys are amazing. Obviously, Binghamton, like he's won a Stanley Cup. He's been there. You can never really count him out, and everybody gets going like we've talked about a little bit more. They get a little bit more physical. They're a little bit more on their game once the playoffs starts because you have to be. Ryan O'Reilly, another guy too. I mean, he's very crafty, very crafty. I think him personally, though, he's kind of has to be in the perfect situation for him to succeed in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't think he's the defining factor that can make his line or his group, his power play, the elite team to get by and win games. So that's why, and he's one of their true leaders. So that's why I'm not really going to side with them compared to like I did with the Capitals and an Ovechkin. And I know Ovechkin's not really there to make other players great because he's the one who's scoring all the goals, but at least he's capitalizing at such a high percentage compared to O'Reilly, and just in my opinion. But obviously it depends on have they decided? Do we know who they're playing yet? There's only been like one group, right? I believe what it was, Minnesota or something like that.
Yeah, it looks like it's Minnesota, but it's still up in the air.
Okay. Well, and that's going to be a hard series itself too.
I'm a huge believer in Minnesota. I think they're a really good team.
I think they're good too. I mean, obviously making that addition or grabbing the addition of Marc-Andre Fleury a couple weeks back. I mean, we all know he's choked, pretty consistently throughout the playoffs. Obviously has his one cup, but at the end of the day, I do believe he's going to be a factor that can help him rise to the occasion. So I think that would be bad news for the Blues.
Definitely a great point. It's a tough first round series, but I think if they get past that one series, I think they get it hot is the thing. So if they get enough momentum from beating a very strong team in Minnesota, I think they could carry that through up to the final, whether it's Calgary or Colorado, they have to end up playing. I think they're the kind of team that thrives off a streak. We're seeing that now in April. They haven't lost in regulation in a month.
That's right.
So if Tarasenko does what he's capable of doing and Ville Husso is not just an aberration, if he's really that guy, they have another run in them, I think.
And we will see. I mean, it's only a couple, about a week away or 2 weeks away? 2 weeks away?
A week, yeah.
A week. So it's coming soon. So we're going to go to my last pick here. I got the Edmonton Oilers. Listen, this team, you have Connor McDavid. So, I mean, obviously that's a huge factor. But when you look into it a little bit more, like I'm looking at some of their players that they've added as of recent. Some have been a little, in the media for bad things. One guy I'm thinking about is like Evander Kane. He's for playing with McDavid, he's doing all right. Obviously he's had a bunch of trouble off the ice with his betting and just other things that he's commented on over his time. I think he has really, I think it was the best place for him to go, first off. Be with a guy like McDavid, and he's had I think he's over almost close to 20 goals on this season. So he's had a pretty decent season for coming in. Not too bad, but other than that, I'm going down to their bottom six, and I think they do have a couple of heavyweights that can, really control the series in the sense of if something's getting out of hand, if one team's beaten up on that top two lines, you got a guy like Zach Kassian to come in and be able to enforce a little bit. And you're going to need that going forward. I cannot stress enough how much physicality, is so important in these series. And then obviously they got a guy on defense in Duncan Keith, obviously has won the Stanley Cup a bunch of times before. So that's got a huge factor in bringing some, present or past success into this team and this organization. I also do like Cody Cece at that back end and the third line pairing. Their goaltending for me, I think has been pretty solid. Some people are up there saying maybe not so much. But I think at the end of the day, they just have that, north-south game plan, and it's very hard to stop, especially Connor McDavid, and we all know that. So I think they have the ability to get by and possibly get to the cup. Obviously, it just depends on where they're seated at, who they're playing, what the rest of the playoff picture looks like. I would love to see what happens in the next couple days here as the regular season ends and we get into the playoffs.
So you're right. Any team with Connor McDavid on it is scary. And Leon
And we've
Draisaitl
seen them in the playoffs before, and
it.
they've choked.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I just feel like this could be a determining series for them too. With the whole McDavid, is he going to be an Edmonton Oiler for the long haul? Because after that, if you can't make it work, I don't think he's going to want to stick around much longer. I think he's going to be like, all right, guys, use me as a piece to get what you need going forward, but I'm not sticking around to be a part of it because I am the face of the NHL right now, and I should be winning Stanley Cups.
I think Edmonton has shown they cannot build around Connor McDavid. I don't think this team is good enough to really try, and that's really, really upsetting when you have the best player in the league to say they don't really even have a good shot because
oh yeah,
he's good. Evander Kane, he does have 20 goals on this. He scored his 21st today.
Okay.
That if Evander Kane is the best pickup you've had in the last 3 years with Connor McDavid, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, I can agree there. I just like I can't stress enough, man. Like just the little nitty gritty stuff, the guys that are going to be able to get underneath your skin when it comes to playoff time.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I see as a factor as a team that, and I'm picking teams that are not supposed to win, not supposed to be there.
No.
That's the reason why I'm going with them is because I think even like Cashian too, like I think they have the ability just to get underneath some of these guys' skin. And McDavid's like that from time to time too. He'll get a little chippy out there, and he'll sometimes rely on Draisaitl to be the guy to produce if he's just the guy that's got to set up people or do whatever they got to do to swarm around the ice and just get the other team fatigue and just thinking about too much of the X's and O's. So that's the reason why I'm going with them.
It makes sense. It's the same thing with the Washington debates. I don't trust their defense. Duncan Keith is not a good player anymore. He's way past his prime. He does not have what he had anymore. I understand he brings a winning culture and he understands what it takes, but I don't think he has what it takes anymore. And I don't see a path for them realistically to get past the second round. They'll probably get past the first round. I think they'll beat the LA Kings handily. I don't think the LA.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good story for the Kings, but I don't really think they have a fighting chance no matter what.
It's an aberration. If they run into Calgary or Colorado, I don't see how they have enough.
No,
because
it's not. It's kind of funny how this year too, especially just how drastically different the top seeds are compared to the lower seeds in the playoffs. Like it's almost as if it is a cakewalk for those top seeds.
Absolutely.
But then again, we've seen this before. Like the one I think of all the time is Tampa years ago when they got, run over by the Columbus Blue Jackets. So,
unbelievable.
That's why they play the games. So, but yeah, just in the hindsight, I really do like. I just think this is the time for McDavid. I think this is not necessarily for Ovechkin, but I just think they have a little bit of nitty gritty to them. Everybody's, afraid of Tom Wilson. Everybody's afraid of Cashian. Nobody likes Evander Kane. He's an easy guy to instigate with. So at least the series I think are going to be interesting to watch. Do I think that they are for sure going to advance? Probably not. But if I'm to bet on it, I'm going to go with those two teams.
It's a good point. And I do think they have the pressure this year to really try and make something happen with McDavid. Because I think they're realizing they have to do something. This is year 4 or 3 of his $12.5 million contract. They've done nothing with it.
Mm-hmm.
and now Draisaitl too on a relatively cheap deal with 9.5 for the production he has.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So I think those two guys they're starting to realize I think they need to do something sooner rather than later, because if they lose any one of those, it's devastating for that franchise.
It is, yeah. And to think like after all the years they went through of just number one pick, number one pick, number one pick, couldn't get that right. Finally, get the guy of the NHL. Like it just, it's amazing just how many people just kind of just brush it aside. He is the face of the NHL.
Oh, he's the
How
best
does
player.
he? I mean, just right then and there, you should be expected to at least make a conference final.
You would hope, yeah.
You would hope, but I mean, I guess
You would
that doesn't
hope.
work nowadays. I mean, I've probably, let's be realistic. I would almost think that maybe Pittsburgh might have a better chance at this point with a
Yeah,
much older Cindy Crosby making it farther into the playoffs than them. But those are our picks. We'll see what happens. We got about a week here. Should be interesting. But let's talk about your Florida Panthers, dude. They are just
let's
on
talk.
a they have been on a prowl right now. Oh my goodness,
Mhm.
13 wins game win streak.
It unfathomable, really. This is their franchise record now for wins in a row, 13 in a row. And what's interesting to me about them is they've been winning games different ways. The first half of this road trip, they were just, or this winning streak, they were outscoring teams 7-6 games, 5-4 games, things like that. And the second half, since April 8th against Buffalo, they have not allowed more than 2 goals. I can pull it up right now. Since April 8th against Buffalo, Nashville 1, Anaheim 2, Winnipeg 1, Detroit 1, Islanders 2, Detroit 2, Toronto 2 last night. And then they're going to play Tampa tonight, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I think it's unbelievable to watch as a fan. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
my team's obviously not in there, but I like to root for my ex players. Seeing like a guy like Sam Reinhart there doing well. I mean, he's got 77 points in 75 games. A really good role for him to play. I think he's brought depth, and you've got just so many just really young, talented kids still there. Even
Mm-hmm.
a guy like Sam Bennett, who a lot of people were thinking he was a little washed up, maybe in Calgary towards the end before he got moved over to Florida. I mean, he's got 47 points in 68 games. Not bad. He's almost a 30 goal scorer with 27. I just think their lineup is insane. I would love to see what their defense core does when the playoffs start, because as of right now, they're on top of the world. Like you said, not allowing a ton of goals, have really good defense, establishing that line at their blue line, really not giving teams chances to even get pressure on their goalies. I have a question. Do you feel any pressure? Are you going to have any pressure when this team starts in the first round? Will you have like any, like, oh my gosh, we're the highest rated team in the league. It should be a cakewalk, depending on who they play, obviously. But do you have any pressure going forward?
Of course, I think they need to win a series this year. I don't think they need to win the cup this year, but they need to get a deep run. They have not won a playoff series since 1996. That's been well documented. And I don't
But in
know,
that series last year was unbelievable to
they
watch.
could have, yeah,
Like
it
you,
was a
you
bad
have to
draw.
agree. Like even if you're Tampa's not your team. You're salty about not pulling through
Mhm.
and getting that series. Probably the most entertaining hockey I've seen in a long time, and that's not just because it was almost towards the end of COVID, and we finally were in like having fans back in the stands. It was like almost somewhat of a normal atmosphere. That was just awesome hockey to watch.
Yeah, it was. But to answer your question, this isn't found money. This isn't a season where they have exceeded expectations, but they weren't expected to be bottom dwellers, and every win from here on out is just a bonus. That's not the case. This was supposed to be a good team, and they are a good team, but they need to show it in the playoffs because they need something to give back to a growing but still small South Florida hockey fan base.
Hmm.
If they disappoint again in the playoffs and go out in round one to Pittsburgh or Washington, whoever it is, good teams, but not as good as the Panthers, it's kind of a big blow to South Florida hockey, I think.
Yeah. No, It's kind
And
of hard
yeah,
to, especially when you have like a franchise like building up over time to what you guys have established down there in South Florida. I think it's, yeah, you demand success right off the bat, especially this type of team.
mhm,
I think this team should make a conference final. But like you said,
at
it is
least,
baby
yeah.
steps. It is baby steps. Getting at least that first playoff series win, and I think that's all they're focused on. They're not focused on getting to the
Mhm,
cup. I think this is the type of team that's taking it one game at a time, one series at a time, and I think they do have the team for
mhm.
it. Obviously, being seeded the first team in the NHL. What really would be their weakness though? Like, what do they have to make sure that they take care of when their first series starts?
Their weakness is on the back end. I wouldn't even call it a weakness. It's just the weakest point of the team is that they're ninth, I think, in goals allowed per game right now. It's pretty good, right? It's
Yeah.
not a danger, it's not a liability, but if you with the offense that's as good as they are, the way to attack them is defensively. They're they're vulnerable, let's say, and especially in the nets. Sergei Bobrovsky, we know what he's capable of, but from what I've seen, his numbers show he's a pretty good goaltender this year. That's not what I've seen. He's an elite goaltender that lets in one or two absolute duds every single game. And if you are able to get more than one or two duds, you could steal a game or two or three from him. So there's a weak point there. And that's something they have to watch out for. And they've done a better job as of late, which I mentioned, limiting goals, limiting chances. But like I think it shows in their comebacks. They have 5 comebacks where they're down 3 or more and they come back, including down 4 twice during this most recent win streak. They they let in goals. It's what they do, and they're capable of coming back. But in the playoffs, you don't want to be down at all. Like even just last night to Toronto, they were down 2-0 after the end of the first. So there's something there, and there's something that's something to watch out for, absolutely. And this win streak, I think, I'm curious what you think. Is it more of an easy schedule, or are they just really this good?
You know, obviously they've faced a couple teams that are towards the bottom of the NHL, but from the games that I've watched too, it's not like they're slowing down a little bit. It's not like they're like breezing through this, just trying to get to that end there. I mean, they still have guys that are trying to get to their season high goal or season high goals for the year. Whether it's assists, points, whatever it is, they still want to make sure they capitalize on their final regular season scores. So I do think it's very impressive too. And you got to remember this isn't straight up just in regulation wins, a couple overtime wins in there, which is good. But I think this is a team that is just so far ahead of everybody else. They really, when it comes down to their conference and at least getting to the cup, I think they only have to worry about one team in my opinion, maybe two. The one team I'm thinking about is Carolina. I just think they're a really
Mm-hmm.
good team.
Yeah.
Full circle. The
Sure.
only other team I would throw in there would possibly be the New York Rangers. I don't know. I just like their style. Even though I may not have agreed with the ways they've brought in certain players and how their team's going to look in maybe the next 5 years, but I like their game as well. So I think those are really the only two teams that they have to like legit worry about. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, I think they have the team. I mean, you just look at their points, dude, from their roster from top to bottom. It is just unbelievable to look
It's
at.
unreal.
It really is, and it's just that new age of hockey as well. I mean, you've got
Mhm.
Huberdeau with 114 points, I believe. Then your next guy is at 88 points, Barkov, and he's only played 65 games.
Yeah.
Like it,
He's,
it's crazy
he's
to look at. You've got three 30 goal scorers. Barkov's probably going to be a 40 goal scorer by the end of the season. And then you've got at least, I believe, three other guys who've had 20 goal seasons and probably three more right outside of 20. Like they are just, it is insane to watch how much production they put out there. So the only other concern I would have of them going forward is who they play and can that team produce against their goaltending and their defense, which I don't really think most teams have the answer for yet.
mhm. And yeah, you mentioned it, right? It's the best offense we've seen since the Lemieux Penguins.
Yeah.
It's historically almost good. And I think their strategy is score 7 in the playoffs. Try beat us by scoring 7. We dare you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a strategy that people talk about as not sustainable. It's not going to work in the playoffs. But we might be seeing something different here. This might be different. And maybe a new age of hockey is really coming, and this is the way to build now is offense, 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 and just enough defense to pull it out, right? And throughout this win streak, they don't have Aaron Ekblad, their best defenseman out there, and he's had a great year. And early on, they were missing him, and they've found ways to beat teams regardless. But he's going to be the difference for them, I think. If he can come back and really shore up the defense, they can't be beat.
We shall see here once we get
So
underway with the playoffs.
I'll see.
But I know you wanted to talk about some NHL debuts, so I'll let you start off there
Yes.
with our first guy.
So right. So I want to talk about the Michigan guys who just got into the NHL. Not so much in their debuts per se. It's one game. Who knows? I want to talk about what it means for their franchises that they're in the NHL so early, that they're able to start off. So I want to start off with Owen Power, the defenseman. Um, from his debut, I mean, he looks NHL ready already. He is such a good player. So as a
You don't have
Buffalo
to tell
fan, I
me
would love.
twice. As a Buffalo fan, I am so excited about Owen Power, and I'll let you continue, but then I'll go off on a little rant about how this guy is everything.
Yeah, I mean, what he could mean to this Sabres team that has been struggling for a direction, if they could build defense first as opposed to putting talented but maybe unseasoned offensive players together for once, Dahlin and Power together as your baseline for a team with their goalie, either Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen or Devin Levy in the future, I'm really excited for what Buffalo can do, building from defense up as opposed to offense down.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And this kid he's played 6 NHL games. He's only got 2 points right now. He got his first NHL goal the other night against the New Jersey Devils. But this guy, like you said, is NHL ready. He, first off, just massive, massive of a man. And you got to realize in about 4 or 5 years, he's going to be evenly distributed in weight. He's going to have that NHL experience. And he looks like he could be a number 1 defenseman right now. He's on the number 2 line right now. He's been going back and forth with a couple other guys. They don't have him and Dahlin necessarily playing together. I don't think they'll actually ever play together, to be honest, because they just want to, divide that talent through the lineup. But
That's the strategy,
from the
right?
first
Spread out
game,
evenly.
yeah, from that first game I watched when he played against the Leafs, which is very close to his home. He had all of his family there. His grandmother was there. It was just a really cool sight to see. He played phenomenal against a really good Leafs team, at least, regular season wise. We'll see what they do in the playoffs. But, for a team that scores a lot, he shut down so many of their guys, especially there was a 2-on-1 coming in. I believe it was with Matthews, I believe, but just looked like a professional, looked like he's been there for at least 6 years, made a play. And for me too, it's just, he's put into a great team. Now, I remember when Rasmus Dahlin got here, I was super excited for it, as every Sabres fan was, but we didn't really know how he was going to react to the team that he jumped into with a leadership in Jack Eichel, a couple other guys who I am not a huge fan of, as I've, told everybody here on this show multiple times. But it just seems that this team nowadays is thriving in the right direction as of late, very late. And they just have the core guys, that all the guys they have in their young development program, even a guy like Jack Quinn and JJ Paterka, who are lighting up the AHL as of right now. They're going to be here in probably next year. And like with Owen, they're just going to build slowly over the next 3 to 4 years to get to that NHL body weight, just get games underneath their belt. But this guy is a true number 1 defenseman, probably going to be playing as your second, captain defenseman going forward. He's a natural. We haven't really seen him have the opportunity to take some shots yet. I haven't seen that yet, but for the defensive perspective was great. His first NHL goal, though, I will mention, after the game, he talked about what he saw. He saw Skinner going in one-on-one, and he said, if I can beat my guy, that's all that matters. He's just got the hockey IQ too, and I think is a really good piece for the Sabres to end off the year and really just get that momentum for all those guys in the locker room, because they finally have a team that wants to play in Buffalo. They actually enjoy it there, and I think Owen understands that, and that's very mature for him to understand his type of role at such a young age. So I think going forward, it's going to be nothing but great success for this guy.
Yeah, you hit it right on. They've been really, really good with their core that they have since Eichel left. It feels like they have a direction. It feels like they have an identity. And I think Owen Power fits right into that. Tage Thompson, their leading goal scorer, he has 37 on the year. He's a big guy. He's tough to play against. Owen Power and now Dahlin, they're big defensemen. They're going to be tough to play against. They're going to be a shutdown team. And if this is their identity, if this is the way Buffalo wants to play, that's really good for them. It's not a collection of talent anymore. It's a team finally. That's what's so exciting to me.
And like I mentioned earlier, like when Dahlin got here, the defense core was god awful, terrible, right? So it was kind of relied on him to do everything. But now that Dahlin has years under his belt, it's probably really nice for Owen to step into that D core. I mean, they've got some key guys there like Yoki Haru, Matthias Samuelsson, who's come up this past year and has played great. Another really pretty big, tall guy too. They're adding size to that defense core, which I'm all about. And like we've talked about with these playoff series coming up, physicality, getting size, using your body, that's what matters in the playoffs. And I think they're slowly building for that. Now, if they can get a goalie under contract and, have one of these young guys come up and really start to make an impact, I think they're a team that can fight for a playoff position next year.
Yeah, it depends who's ready for them. They have two nice goaltender prospects. We'll see if any of them are ready. We know Levi's going back to college, but maybe Ukko-Pekka, it's his time. Next up, we have Matty Beniers now with Seattle. He has 3 goals and 2 assists already. I think for Seattle, it's got to be really encouraging coming right out of college and then already putting up goals in the NHL. We know Seattle is not a good team right now, but this could be their first franchise player. He could be the guy to get them on the right track. Do you think he could be that guy?
I think he can. I think he can to an extent. I think I do like Matty Beniers' game. The one thing though, I don't think he's the guy that can change a line or make everybody around him better, because that's what you see in a franchise player. You look at like Sidney Crosby, when he's brought in to a line, anybody around him is going to perform or at least have a better year than what they've had in the previous. I don't know if Matty Beniers is going to be that necessarily. I need to see a little bit more of him in the NHL. I've had too many years of just watching some of these players drafted maybe in mid-round of the first round get a crack at their first NHL debuts, going for the last maybe 10, 15 games of the regular season for a team that may not be making the playoffs or making the playoffs. And yeah, they may get flashy a little bit. For me, Beniers, I know he's had a couple of injuries in his past. That's the only thing, too, that's holding me back from him possibly getting to the next level or being that guy. So, and we all know that Seattle is struggling. Maybe this is just, his time to fit in, and it's just a little bit of an improvement. I would like to see what he does over the next 3 years to possibly stay at a high position on that top 2 lineup and then go forward and eventually take over and make other players around him better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was really impressed with him. One, his size at 6'2", but I think his feel as a goal scorer is so impressive.
I will say it seems natural. It seems so natural to him.
So natural to him. I get what you're saying. He's not the playmaker mold of a Crosby or McDavid, but maybe he's in the Austin Matthews mold. I'm not saying he's Austin Matthews. It'd be crazy to say like he will be Austin Matthews, but maybe like a Tomas Hertl type. He's that kind of goal.
No, but I get what you say when you say Austin Matthews. I get what we're talking about, strictly like player IQ and the way you think of adapting or attacking the game. Not saying he's going to go out and score as many goals and get as many points as Austin Matthews. Not even close. I mean, obviously, I think Matthews is a little bit, bigger guy, at least maybe in being wider and a little bit more muscle on him. Obviously, that's due to a lot more years in the league. But I think, he has the potential. I just need to see a couple years under his belt of consistent play from him, and hopefully he stays on the ice pretty consistently as well. Like I said, those injuries in the past for him, they could get nagging as he goes down his NHL career. But I think he's a solid pick, obviously the right pick for Seattle, and who knows, maybe they've given them hope. We'll see if he capitalizes in the next couple of years here, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to correct myself real quick. In his first 10 games, he has 5 goals and 3 assists. He looks like he has a better feel already than Lafreniere in New York, but we'll get conversation for a different time.
Kind of a bust, in my opinion.
He just doesn't have it. I thought he was, but
he doesn't.
I'm happy
for the Lord, the Sabres did not win the draft lottery that year.
The one and only year.
Oh, man. That's all I look forward to as of recently, buddy. It was draft lottery year in and year out. So, but you've got one more player you want to talk about, so let's get to it.
One last guy, Kent Johnson in Columbus. He's another player that's making his debut. And for Columbus, I mentioned this previously on this show. I love the way Columbus is building. They're moving on from the Panarin, Bobrovsky years where they upset the Lightning, but they have a real foundation right now. And I love the way they're building, and I hope Kent Johnson maybe won't be the guy there, but he can be a really nice 2C maybe for them. I think he's a really nice player for a team that's building with Bokvist already, with maybe Korpisalo and net. We'll see if Patrick Laine sticks around, but if he has Patrick Laine to his wing, he doesn't have to be the play driver on offense. He could be just a nice secondary filler, maybe like someone like Ryan O'Reilly that we mentioned earlier. I think he's that kind of guy. And I'm really happy for them that they found a kind of guy that's hard to find, responsible on both ends. So that's
I like the patience in his game. I think that's a key factor in what he's done at Michigan, especially, and the fact that all three of these guys come from there. It's unbelievable to see what that program has done. Obviously, unfortunate they weren't able to pull through in the Frozen Four, but I think nothing but great success for them going forward. So, pretty interesting squad they got going on there, and I do think it's a pretty good fit for Columbus.
It is a good fit. He only has a couple of assists, but I do like what I've seen from him so far. Just a responsible and patient game. That Michigan team was stacked, huh?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Oh,
so that's all I have.
Crazy. All right. Well, thanks for hockey. It was good seeing you, buddy, and we'll see you next week.
Yep. See you later.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back here. Just going to give a nice little headline for you right now, and I just wanted to talk before we go into football here, but the Tennessee Titans and the Buffalo Bills are actually getting new stadiums, deals struck, and for both sides, and seems like, the Bills are going to get an upgraded stadium in Orchard Park in 2026. It's going to be an outdoor stadium. I know a lot of people were thinking about if it was going to be indoors. But the natural elements is what they want in Western New York. So I think it's a really good, upgrade for Orchard Park and, the Buffalo community going forward. Much needed. Obviously, everybody loves going to Ralph Wilson Stadium, getting rowdy for some tailgates and stuff, but it's going to be right across the street. Really happy that they were able to keep it in Orchard Park. And then obviously Tennessee getting their stadium, even though they've had, a decent amount of success with their stadium at Nissan right across the river there in Nashville, but they'll be getting a new stadium, and reports are that it's going to be indoors. I suspect this is going to be for possibly hosting Super Bowls and maybe even bowl games down the road. Anytime you have a dome, you're going to have that much more of an advantage going forward. But pretty much that's our little update before we get into football. So going to have a couple guys join me, so let's get to it. What's up, boys? How we doing?
Doing all right.
What's up, man? How you doing?
Hanging in there. Just wanted to It's kind of nice to have three people on so we can get some
Yeah,
opinions and some debates going for
sure.
football here. And I just wanted to start off with the NFL draft.
Hmm.
Real quick, do you guys think that this has the potential to be a bust draft in any way?
Ooh,
I have
that's a good
thoughts.
question. Yeah, yeah, Tim, go for it. Especially if you have some strong thoughts, go for it.
Jacksonville. We keep hearing about Trayvon
Mhm.
Walker, Trayvon Walker, Trayvon Walker. I like Trayvon Walker, right? Good player.
Yeah.
Seems like a good dude, right? He's a really good athlete. He's got some really good size. I don't think he can actually rush the passer. Like I think that's going to be something that is really going to take some time to develop if it ever does. Like a lot of his pressures and plays in the backfield are off of stunts and loops and exotic Georgia blitzes. He really doesn't pin his ears back and go. Like that's not something that he does a lot. Like Aiden Hutchinson does, like Kayvon
Right.
Thibodeau does, like George Karlaftis does, Jermaine Johnson. All those guys do that like repeatedly, and they do it well. Trayvon Walker does not. And that concerns me a lot, especially if you're going to pass on all those guys and these great offensive tackle prospects. To me, a generational safety prospect in Kyle Hamilton. You're going to pass on all these guys for Trayvon Walker because he lit up the combine and he looks really good in shorts with no shirt on.
Listen, this isn't DK Metcalf 2.0 right here. I mean, even though
Nah.
DK went off and he had his shirt off when he was talking to Pete Carroll in
That was
Seattle,
funny. Yeah.
coming in with it was, I mean, funny, but I mean, he at least had some tape to prove it of what was going on and his success in college. I completely agree with you there, though, dude. I mean, I think it's Hutchinson first overall, no matter what.
Like with Walker, and that's the funny thing. And I like the way you said it. Like he didn't rush the passer. Like with him, it's all projection, right? So if you're a team that really believes in his tools, and you think that it's not that he can't rush the passers, that he wasn't asked to do it in the way that most guys coming out would be, then that's one thing. But you don't take that guy first overall,
especially in like what maybe I'll call this one of the best edge rusher classes that I've ever looked at. Right, I've
from
been doing
a
this
depth
for
standpoint, for sure. Like
I mean, come on, like we could have like 5 pass rushers go top 10.
it's
Like it's
very
not out of the
possible.
question.
It's kind of
Depending on how
unheard
it
of, to be
breaks.
honest.
It's a little bit like that Nick Bosa, Josh Allen class, but like on steroids.
Yeah, because you have 5 guys there, like you said.
You had some guys.
I mean,
fall in
are
that
they all
class
going to
because
pan
of-
out, though? Are they all going to pan out?
Realistically, not, but like
Not realistically,
If
no.
there's one that's not going to, like, let's
Maybe
say
Walker,
all of
yeah.
them hit their ceiling, and there's one that we think might not. It
It's
could
going to be Walker. It's going to
Yeah.
be Walker.
Like he
It's
is
just-
a heavy projection pick, and I don't
Yes.
know if that's what I do with Hutchinson, Thibodeau, Karlaftis, Johnson. I mean, all these guys, and I love David Ojabo, but now like his stock
with his
is ruined.
injury. Yeah, with his
Like,
injury.
he's
Yeah,
probably
but
going
even
round
then,
2.
I still might like, because I trust what I saw from him translating, but I still
Stud.
might consider taking him over Walker.
I
Depending
think
on
anytime
where I'm at.
injuries are, a factor, unless it's something fatal, I
Right.
think you still take the guy, especially at how young they are. I mean, I know a lot of people have been talking about like Jamison Williams from Alabama and his injury.
Right.
I'm taking him in the heartbeat if you're looking for a wide receiver. Are you
Mhm.
kidding me? I think a good team for him to go to, or a team to pick him up, would be Kansas City Chiefs right after losing a speedster in Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, just a little
I
bit.
think that would be
That's
ideal. I don't think they're too
terrifying.
worried about their wide receiver situation right now either, too, getting Juju Smith-Schuster and a couple of other guys. As long as you have Patrick Mahomes too, right? I mean, you'll be able to survive a little bit until Jameson's ready to go. And then you add probably one of the faster guys in the NFL at that point. So, anytime you have injury going on, unless it's fatal, or something that's really going to mess up maybe the way you walk or whatever it is, then don't take them. But injury-wise, these kids are so young. They've got the best medical staff out there. I think it's worth to, unless it's like a recurring injury too.
Right.
Like then that's a problem. But no, the training staff that these guys have at these universities and then going into the NFL, it's second to none. So I think at the end of the day, you pick the guy who is the best available.
Yeah, I feel like at this point the only team that maybe shouldn't take anybody who's injured is the Chargers, just because guys get hurt just getting out of bed for that team. So maybe
Seriously,
beside them,
it's too much laying in the sun and not enough stretching.
I guess not. No, but other than them, I think the injury thing really it just comes down to the team, right? Because some teams look at it differently. Some teams say, you know what, we want a guy that's going to be able to come in and do the full offseason, be ready to start the season. Other teams say, we'll take a guy who's super talented, but maybe we won't get much from him year one because maybe they wouldn't have played him much anyway. So it's really more of a team-specific kind of philosophy there.
Yeah. So do you guys see any or Tim, do you have anything to say?
I wanted to move on to like a different question, but you have a question. So
I was going to say, do you guys see any trades possibly happening here, maybe in the top 10? Or outside the top 10?
So we got Jacksonville at 1. I think they're staying.
Yeah.
And they'll probably take best pass rusher on the board. Lions at 2. I would move if I was them, but there's really no point. They have so many draft picks because of the rebuild. Like if you got a guy you love,
if you're in the beginning of your rebuild, definitely. I mean, unless you want it to last that much longer, but I would start getting some key guys there and have them develop, them and like make sure they understand that role too of what they're going to be getting into. Saying, hey, obviously we've got a bunch of picks in the future here, but we need to start building, and I need you to become that leader. Right. Obviously, we want to get to the getting into the playoffs, getting some Super Bowls and getting you some rings and stuff. But it goes a lot more than just, being that skillful guy, having those high stat numbers. You're going to have to be that guy that really, all these young kids coming in the future, you're basically their father, like just telling them, guiding them through everything. Yeah. So I think that's a huge key. And I don't think Detroit should trade at all. They just need to start drafting everything they have.
Yeah.
I think if we do see one in the top 10, it might be at 10 with the Jets. I know they've been trying for months to move off that pick and get some extra capital.
Do you want to talk about our next topic here and maybe tie that in? We got a couple we heard that Deebo Samuel wants out of San Francisco, and one of the teams reported to be interested in trading is the New York Jets. So could that is that worth a 10th overall pick?
Here's the big conundrum with Deebo, right? You look at what he did last season, and you're talking about a 26-year-old superstar.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, well, I just saw 2 30-year-olds get traded and sign massive contracts. Let's say it's the Tyreek Hill package, which is 5 picks and a contract that's going to pay him anywhere from $25 to $30 million a year. As a weapon, Deebo Samuel is a top 3 weapon in the NFL, right? But as a pure receiver, he's maybe top 12. Like maybe. Like he's definitely top 15, but he's in that range. Like his pure receiving ability, he's not this unbelievable superstar like a DeAndre Hopkins or a Devontae Adams, anything like that. And if he's saying that he doesn't want to play that role anymore, he doesn't want to be the weapon, he wants to be a receiver, well, there's no way in hell he's worth that deal and that contract.
I'm going to kind of disagree real quick. I'm going to say something real quick. I hate his character. I don't like his character at all. I don't like how he's handling his situation off the field. I know he's frustrated and all that stuff. But I do think this guy is just a unbelievable athlete. And obviously nowadays, I mean, why even label yourself a tight end, wide receiver, running back? We're looking for athletes here in this league. And he is one of the best athletes out there. I think he can be a lethal wide receiver. Obviously, he came out and said, I don't want to be that guy who's in the backfield running balls, going through the linemen 24/7. He doesn't want to do that anymore. So obviously we haven't seen him in that situation yet. Plus, if he's going to a team like, say, New York, his numbers are going to go down. I mean, there's no way. Even if he is their number one guy, he's not going to have enough time for Zach Wilson to be blocking for over maybe 2.5 seconds because their O-line really isn't that good. Obviously, they're going to be looking at him for possibly double teaming if you're going to double team anybody when on the Jets. And I just think he does have a freak ability to really escape from tackles. He knows how to work the edges when he's running. A lot of that has come from him in the backfield, being that hybrid player that everybody has set him to be. I think if he does get a position somewhere, maybe not New York, as a wide receiver, I still think he's going to be the same guy, depending on quarterback, obviously.
Deebo is a freak type player. He's one of those guys you have to get the ball in his hands. And now I know there are teams out there that think, oh, well, once we get him in the building, we can sell him on the plan and he'll be fine playing.
No. He, like you said, think so. Mid-20s, he wants money. He wants all this stuff. He wants to make sure he's set up, not at the age of 30 or whatever when they're getting these contracts.
I mean, look, if he keeps playing that role, the wide back, I mean, he won't be playing in his mid-30s. Like, he will be on the sideline.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest reason. That's why everyone mentioned Miami and the Jets immediately because they both have former San Francisco guys calling plays. I don't think he wants to play for a San Francisco guy because, again, NFL decision makers are arrogant. They will say, hey, we'll trade for him, and then once we get him in the building, sit him down with our offensive minds, he'll come back to earth and he'll do whatever's best for the team. I'm not sure, man. Like, he took some shots last season.
Yeah, he did.
Oh,
Running
100%.
between the tackles, he's only going to take more.
The whole thing for me, and like, I think it's not so much whether the value's worth it, like you guys said, it's whether or not the team that gets him is going to be willing to use him the way he wants to be used. Because if they're not, he's not going to be, one, as valuable, and two, he's not going to be as happy as you want him to be. I mean, if he was going to be happy doing that role, he wouldn't want out of San Francisco at this point, because I know they're willing to pay him. Of course they are. Like, they've kind of said that themselves, or at least it's come out that they're willing to pay him, but he doesn't want it to be there because he knows Shanahan is going to use him in the way he sees fit, which is smart for the Niners, but not so much for Samuel. So he's decided apparently that he'd rather take the chance that he can be successful elsewhere and get paid somewhere else where he's not going to get those, touches inside as a running back. So does his value? I think if you're the Jets, you still might consider trading for him, even if he doesn't want to carry the ball much, because I think he'll still be able to be used creatively in a way that's not necessarily just shoving him in the middle of the field and hoping he can break tackles and stuff like that, but still use him kind of as run him routes, maybe out of the backfield, use him on sweeps and stuff like that. Just let him just get the ball in his hands and you'll be fine. I think he's going to be very valuable as long as you can get him 100 plus touches, however you need to do it. But again, if he has to be happy with his role, or else it's not going to work out long term.
Gotcha.
A little wrinkle to this. I just checked who Debo is represented by. He's represented by CAA. And when it comes to CAA, those guys are all about the dollars. Like Clutch and other stuff like that, they're all about player empowerment.
Yes.
So if he was represented by Clutch, I'd tell you he is not going to play this role ever again. If he has decided that he's not doing it, he's not doing it. CAA may sit Debo down and tell him, hey, if you want Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams money, you might have to run the ball a little bit. So that's an interesting wrinkle because, I mean, I think CAA represents Dak Prescott and got him paid big time.
Yeah.
They gotten a lot of guys paid a lot. They are not like Clutch. Like, Clutch represents guys like Ben Simmons, who is missing an entire NBA season simply because he wants to.
Yeah, I will say, like, that's a factor too. I don't think that Debo's necessarily unwilling to run the football. I think he just doesn't want it to be like it was down the stretch of last season, because there was points in the season where he was getting a couple carries here and there, important downs, you got to have it stuff. It was once they got to the end of the season in the playoffs where he was basically playing almost like a 50-50 split of running back and receiver, where he seemed to have issues.
He doesn't want to be Christian McCaffrey.
Right. And like, that's,
I mean, did you guys see his photo the other day?
Yeah.
Dude looks like he's 40 years old.
He does. I don't know.
That pretty much missed 2 years in a row.
Pretty much.
Because he basically played receiver and running back.
He was a hybrid.
He got ran into the ground, and now he can't finish a season. Hey, credit to him though. He got paid big time.
He did for running back too. He'll be
100%.
all right, but still, it's tough to play that role. It is, no matter how. I mean, Debo's just rocked up as anybody in his size, but like, it doesn't. At some point, it doesn't matter. Like, you have to be able to handle those hits, and not many guys can. I mean, so that's just what kind of boils down to.
I agree. All right, well, let's end to that topic, and let's get into one other guy that we want to see possibly go to some different teams. We got Baker Mayfield here. Obviously, Deshaun Watson gets traded to the Cleveland Browns and then immediately gets his contract. Now we've got Baker Mayfield. Where is he going to go? He is obviously very vocal about how pissed off he is about how everything went down. Do you think he can go to a team and maybe help out an organization? Do you think any team is interested in him? What teams would those be?
I feel like if we're looking at just places that would both have a need at quarterback that they either maybe don't want to fill or can't fill in the draft, or just places that can also afford to take on his contract and not worry too much about next year's cap hit because they're not trying to win anyway, or if they are trying to win, they need just some sort of an upgrade. You're looking at Carolina because Darnold just isn't the guy, and they might not want to take a
Could
quarterback.
you
at 6.
imagine the first
Yes.
overall pick and
That'd be
third
so
overall
funny.
pick of that year's draft on the same team?
I love it just for that too. But
Costing
like,
almost $40
yeah,
million
$40 million.
guaranteed
Yeah,
dollars.
exactly.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
So I mean, but he's again like a healthy Baker, and this is the key thing. I think that people kind of forget that like I'm not the biggest Baker Mayfield guy, even before last year or even in the best year he had in 2020. But like, he's not a bottom 5 quarterback when he's healthy. He hasn't been really at all since he's played. He's going to be better than Darnold has been. It's just whether that upgrade is enough for you to take that contract on and give up any sort of asset. And then if it's not them, really the only other team that he would be pretty much a guaranteed starter on, I think at this point, assuming he's healthy, is Seattle. And I just don't know if they want to even try to win next year realistically. Like, if that's what they're trying to do, if they want to be competitive, he's probably the best upgrade. That would also be cheaper than like a Garoppolo or whatever in terms of draft capital. But that's really the only 2 places I see where he would be traded and actually given a good shot to win a job.
I kind of agree with you, actually, to be honest. I would lean more towards Seattle.
Yeah,
I know, obviously, the controversy of them possibly in a rebuild. Have to see where possibly DK Metcalf, if he does end up getting moved on from there.
That's true too.
Those are all big factors. But realistically, I haven't really picked up a team yet because the reason why is I think we might see Baker Mayfield obviously being sat down. Obviously, the organization needs to figure out what they want to do with him. But I think he's going to sit down and wait for this training camp season to start.
Yeah.
You never know. Someone could go down, and the next thing you know, they're getting on the line and being like, Baker, we need you over here. Let's make this happen. Cleveland, let's make this happen. And I think, in my opinion, he's a top 20 quarterback. Like maybe the 19th or 20th guy.
When he's healthy, I think
when he's healthy.
He's healthy. Yeah, I think you could argue it.
And I'm not a big fan of him either, too. I obviously wanted him years and years ago, but as I saw him play, I was just like, okay, really not the guy. I do think he is a top 20 quarterback, though, at least out of all the starting quarterbacks as of right now. Not before the draft, before we have competitions. As of right now, he is top 20. So I don't understand. I even look at a team like Atlanta, too, from time to time. I know they just signed Mariota, but give him an opportunity. Maybe even the Texans. I know they're still going with Mills, but Baker's from Texas. Might as well. Maybe it would work out. I think at the end of the day, if you can get through the last bit of his contract and then move on and maybe he can restructure some stuff down the road, it might be worth it.
Personally, I think what Baker should do is, and he's not going to do it, never going to do it. He should swallow his ego and play 6 games for the Cleveland Browns in 2020.
Yep. I saw, who was it? It was either Scheffner or Ian Rappaport came out and said, I wouldn't be surprised if you see Baker play a couple preseason games for the Browns, and then after that, start a couple, because we don't know how long Deshaun's going to be out for if he ends up getting suspended.
I'll put the house on Deshaun getting suspended, mainly because outside of Baker and Deshaun, the Browns have signed like 4 other quarterbacks.
Yeah, including former Steeler Josh Dobbs.
They are prepping to not have Deshaun Watson for a couple weeks. So honestly, if Baker's number one concern right now should be becoming a starter and a highly paid starter in 2023, because he's a free agent after the year, the best way he can do that is play 6 games for the Browns. Great offensive line, great play caller. They just added Amari Cooper to a receiving core that was really bad last year. He's got continuity with the play callers and, the receivers, the coaching staff, everything. And it'll repair his image, which is really damaged around the league right now. The Browns have made it very clear they're not cutting him, mainly because, and Shane, I think you know this, he'll be a Steeler the next morning.
Well, I personally, I don't think that they would do that, but I also...
Those are the rumors of why Cleveland won't cut him. They refuse to. Yeah. It's because they believe that he'll be a Steeler by sunrise.
I've heard those rumors too, but I just personally don't buy it. I don't think they would have. I don't think they would do it. I think they're happy to roll with Mitch for now and see what happens.
I would roll with Mitch. I would roll with Mitch for this year because the tough part is Baker is a free agent next year. Like, you can give up a 5th round pick for Baker, have him play, okay to pretty good. Let's say even if he's really good, and then you either have to pay him, franchise tag him, or he's leaving and you get nothing.
Yeah, it's a tough situation because, realistically, if you think about it, especially the kind of guy he is, his biggest thing has always been motivating himself to rise above what people think about him, right? Like that's his whole thing, is the biggest chip on his shoulder of all time, maybe, despite having multiple chances to start in different programs and being the first overall pick. None of that has seemed to matter to him at all in terms of the chip on his shoulder. He very well could, if he's healthy and on a team that is at least somewhat decent on offense, he very well could rebuild his value enough that you'd have to pay him a decent amount of money to keep him, and it might not be worth it for the teams we're talking about that might be interested in him.
I think the big one's Carolina too.
Yeah.
I think the guys in Carolina are on hotter seats than anyone in the NFL.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, if the thing is just continue to be paid by the Carolina Panthers for another season, then Matt Rule should be on the phone with Cleveland right now.
Yeah.
So. I'll take Baker over Darnold. Will it get me an extra win or two that maybe gives me one more year? Sure. I mean, I want to be employed if I'm Matt Rule.
That's kind of like, as much as Seattle has more incentive, I think, in general, just because they have the money and they don't have anybody who can play outside unless you really like Geno Smith for some reason. Carolina would be the team that would make the sense from the coaching perspective, because again, like you mentioned, Rule is very likely gone unless they win 8-9-ish games, if not more. Like they have to be in contention for that 7th seed or better, and a weak NFC now that everyone decided to jump ship and go to the AFC. And if they don't do that, he's not coming back. Even if, like, the defense would have to also improve a bunch as well, which I think they have the talent at least to do that. But the offense needs somebody who can actually run it and not just blank out for 8 plays a game and throw the ball to the other team. Like that's just what they need at this point.
Yeah, I like everything you guys have said. There's so many teams you can think about and just situations that could possibly happen, especially certain quarterbacks not producing, these young quarterbacks coming off rookie contracts. I mean, you could even make the case for possibly like a guy like Daniel Jones. If he doesn't have it in him going forward, why wouldn't you bring in a guy like Baker Mayfield? And you look at their new head coach and Brian Dable, who basically kind of crafted a guy like Josh Allen. So if anything, it would seem like nothing but uprise from there. But at the end of the day, we really don't know until more moves are made ahead. But I think Baker still has it, like you guys have talked about. I think we'll see him play this year. If it's not for the Browns, it's going to be for some different team. I just think we all know in this league, injuries come, or different coaching staffs are, on the hot seat and they need to make moves, and sometimes they're not the right moves, but I think Baker will get another opportunity. But that being said, I would like to go into our last little topic of the day, our top 5 quarterbacks of the NFL right now. I want to hear everybody's list. Well, you want to start us off, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, this is always a topic that totally everyone agrees with and doesn't get mad about.
I can't wait for it.
So the approach I took with mine is like where I see these guys finishing after this season, right? Like for like planning.
Josh Allen at 4.
Herbert at
3.
Yeah, I know you're not gonna like that.
All right.
But no, so I'm looking at this of like, who do I think when we look at the end of the next season, who are the guys we're going to be talking about in this order, basically. Okay. And to me, Mahomes is still the guy. I know, like, obviously, Matt, you have Josh Allen. I don't blame you. Just watching those two play each other, you're just like, what are we supposed to do if we're not one of these two guys?
I'm more shocked about Herbert. But
so
I'm to hear it.
I'm trying to make up.
Go partially. Through it, 1 through 5. Let's go through it.
We'll start with, so Mahomes, he's my number one for the same reason probably anyone else is going to say is his number one. That just, if you look at it from a talent perspective, consistent over the past 4 years, really. Everything that he's done, whether it's been the big play, whether it's adjusting to teams trying to take that away by playing 2 high safeties constantly against him, the way that he was able to play down the stretch of last year when things weren't going so well, the playoffs outside of some weird stuff at the Bengals game, everything just still points to him being the guy that we all thought he was. And there's nothing that's going to really knock him down at this point for me. Rodgers was the MVP back-to-back. I'm not really willing to put him any lower than 2 until he proves he's not that guy anymore. That's kind of what it comes down to with him. We know Aaron Rodgers. We know what he can do. Herbert at 3, to me, is this really, for me, it's making a leap from what we saw this year with a better team around him, with hopefully a better offensive line, having Williams return, not leaving in free agency, which was a big deal. I'm glad they were able to do that. It's a projection of me thinking this guy from a talent perspective, the only guy that has a similar chance leap-wise to make that into the top 3 is my 4th guy with Josh Allen. I just haven't seen with Allen the same, like his consistency from game to game isn't quite there yet for me. And I think we'll see more of it next year. he has a couple games, it feels like, where that accuracy that we didn't see at first in college in his first year kind of comes back to bite him a little bit. And as spectacular as he is, if until he gets a little bit less of that inconsistency happening, which I think he will. I mean, he's improved pretty much every year, unless you consider last year kind of a bit of a step back from 2020. I believe in the talent there. I just want to see him do it more consistently. And then 5, I'm going to keep Brady in my top 5 until he proves he's not. I do think that realistically, at some point, we're going to see a little bit of a downtick in production, whether it's because of just age or just the team kind of falling down a little bit, especially with Arians now stepping aside and Bulls coming in. But there's a bunch of guys right below him and that like 5 to 6, 7 spot that could jump him or get into that top 5 as well.
All right, Tim, you want to go?
Yeah, so I got Mahomes at 1-2. I mean, Mahomes and Allen right now, they are the Brady and Manning of our generation. I think they're neck and neck. I'm going to go with Mahomes right now. I don't know if you guys saw this video of Patrick Mahomes, like how he works out. It looks ridiculous. Like, trust me, he looks like a buffoon when he's doing it. But all those things you see in game, like they're not instincts. They're not him just like winging it. He actually practices this stuff.
He does. Yeah.
Like the way he like backpedals in the pocket, all that crazy stuff he does. Like that is a trained skill. He does that every single day. And to me, that's just really impressive. Allen, he's the alien, right? Like Mahomes, Allen, Herbert, like those guys are physical specimens, like guys like something we've never seen before. And to me, Josh Allen, I mean, I got nightmares about Josh Allen, trust me. So I think him and Mahomes are gonna, battle for that AFC for a long time, battle for this 1-2 spot for a really long time. 3 and 4, Rodgers and Brady, the old guys. I mean, it's just consistency, week in, week out. They're, 3, 4 best guys in the league, right? We know Rodgers won back-to-back MVPs. That Packers offense in the regular season is virtually unstoppable. I keep hearing this narrative that he's going to be better without Devontae Adams because he locks on to Adams in the fourth. Listen, ain't nobody better without Devontae Adams. Like, let's cut that right now. Devontae Adams is an absolute freak of a football player. But Aaron's still Aaron, right? Like, he got 2 MVPs before Devontae Adams is even in the NFL.
Yeah.
So 4, Brady, again, consistency. Ceiling not as high as Mahomes and Allen and Rodgers, because we do see times at the end of the season where that arm starts to wind down. It was more dramatic with guys like Breeze and Peyton. Peyton's last 2 playoff runs were despicable. I mean, there was nothing left in the arm. That last season of Drew Brees, nothing left in the arm. Brady still got a lot more left. The shape he keeps himself in is ridiculous. The pocket presence, the accuracy, all that stuff. I mean, he's Tom Brady, right? He's been in the MVP conversation pretty much every year since 2007.
Yes.
And then 5, a little bit of a shocker, Lamar Jackson, right? Injury derailed the season, but the Ravens were 8-3. The absolute carry job that Lamar Jackson was doing with that Ravens offense. Don't know how there wasn't an offensive coordinator change. Obviously, big money left tackle goes down early in the season. Again, I'm officially concerned about Ronnie Stanley.
Yeah.
They did nothing to replace Orlando Brown. I mean, Alejandro Villanueva, good player, good guy, massive human being. But look, the foot speed there's nothing there. There's nothing in those feet, right? And I think this season for Lamar, I've talked about it, revenge season. I think Lamar Jackson is going to blow up this NFL in 2022. Now, I hope the Ravens can get to his level. I'm not overly optimistic about, the rest of that roster. I was a big fan of the receiver they drafted in the first round, Rashad Bateman, last year. Obviously gets hurt right away in camp. So, crumble up his rookie season, throw it away. If you get hurt in camp as a rookie, it is almost impossible to catch up midway through your first NFL season. But he's got a full off season with Lamar. Really excited about that. I thought about guys like, Herbert, Stafford, doesn't get a lot of respect, but I'm a big Stafford guy. But I need to see a little bit more consistency from Justin Herbert in the fourth quarter, right? I know he's graded highest fourth quarter EPA. Yeah, that's nonsense. I watch him throw a lot of unnecessary fourth quarter interceptions when he's pressing too much. But that's the beautiful thing. He's 23 years old. Like, those are going to go away. He's a scary sight for the NFL for a long time. I think the league is in great hands.
Well, I'm going to tell you guys why Josh Allen's the best quarterback in the NFL right now. So,
No bias
basically,
whatsoever.
not biased whatsoever. And, I have Mahomes at 2. I'm not saying like Allen is drastically over like Mahomes by any means. Those guys are the, standard of quarterback play in the NFL right now. But over the past 2 seasons, Allen is 5th in total passing and rushing yards, right? To start off with, he has the 4th most passing touchdowns and the 3rd most rushing touchdowns by any quarterback in the past 2 seasons. Also, when you look at the or his 6 total postseason games over the last, I think, 3 years or whatever it was, Allen's averaged over 348 total yards per game. So, and with like 16 touchdowns and only 2 turnovers. So, if you were to take say Tom Brady, right? So, Allen's roughly probably about averaging 60 more total yards in the air than Tom Brady, who's like arguably the best. He is the best quarterback of all time. Not saying it's a different day and age. I completely understand that. But the other reason I'm going to mention it too is how Josh wins football games. You look at that game and sometimes loses them. So you look at the game of the Kansas City Chiefs and the Bills in the divisional round last year, right? A lot of people go out there and say, okay, even though the Bills lost, they won. Josh Allen did everything he needed to in that game. Stephon Diggs maybe had 3 receptions the whole game, right?
Yeah.
You look at Mahomes, he's always had Kelsey, he's always had Tyreek Hill. Those have been his bread and butter ever since he's gotten there, right? Josh Allen can make any player on that team great. You look at that game specifically, you have a guy in Gabe Davis, a second-year wide receiver, go for 200-something yards and 4 touchdowns. I'm saying he's a great wide receiver. He's truly developed, but in a 2-year span, he drops an NFL record. And I think the majority of that is due to Josh Allen. And if you obviously flip the coin at the end of that game, I think whoever gets the ball offensively is winning the football game. So if that happens going forward, then you look into the whole, okay, Patrick Mahomes had the game of his life, but didn't obviously get the win. Obviously, besides that, though, I just love how Josh Allen reads the field. He understands his type of team, and he understands the critiques he's under all the time. He's never going to be in the media the loved one by everybody, like a Patrick Mahomes, like an Aaron Rodgers, like a Tom Brady. He's had to work through that his entire life. His first couple of years were terrible statistically, and as most people do when they talk about their top quarterbacks, is statistics, and he was just not there. He's the ultimate fighter going through and developing, and I think now he is the best quarterback. You also look at like Brian Dable, who's now the head coach of the Giants. Previously, from him and any type of offensive coordinator position, has not had a offense into the top 20 until Josh Allen came around. So I think he's done nothing but improved compared to the easier start that I think a guy like Patrick Mahomes has. Plus, I just love his physicality. You look at him get in between go into the trenches, really blow up, and literally get hit by his own offensive lineman because he just loves playing the game of football. He's a nut, and I love it. So it's very close, but I have those two right there. And then you've got Aaron Rodgers, 2-time MVP back-to-back. It's clear and obvious. He may not be, this day and age's quarterback style where we're looking for athletes. Mahomes, Allen, athletes. Rodgers, yes, he's an athlete, but he can't take off when needed to. Same thing with Tom Brady. I mean, I have to put him in the list. Otherwise, I would probably throw in a guy like Joe Burrow just because of what he's done in the past. And then the other guy I have is Russell Wilson. This one is not really typically a favorite because of what he's done over the past couple of years and just being injured. But I'm looking at athletes. He's a lot better, I think, than a Joe Burrow right now. And I think Joe just needs a couple more years under his belt to get his football IQ up a little bit more. And then I would put him up in this list. I just think of everything we've seen from Russell Wilson, getting some Super Bowls done, now being moved to Denver, I think he's just going to have a little bit more of an advantage going forward, have a better transition, and I just like his game. He's able to run around the pocket a lot smoother than I think Burrow is. Obviously, Burrow had a terrible offensive line. I mean, so has Wilson over the past couple of years, but he's still making I don't know, at least 40 touchdown passes a year when he's fully healthy. He's still one of the top quarterbacks in this league. So that's why I'm putting Wilson at 5. Otherwise, I would have probably Burrow right outside at 6.
Yeah, and like I will say, like with my list too, and I just kind of give people an idea. My like if you extend this to like 6, 7, 8, 9 ish, like there's a lot of guys that are right in that 5 tier territory for me too. Like Burrow, Jackson is probably my favorite if I was going to move someone up in the 5. Like you said, Tim, I think that if he's healthy and they actually don't lose their entire offensive lineup next year, which I doubt happens twice in a row, I'm probably not going to be excited about what that team does to the Steelers. But realistically, like there's a bunch of guys that once you get past the first like 4 guys, really, there's this big tier of guys that depending on what you like or who you think is more likely to project better in the next couple of years that you can look at. And I will say with Allen too, like if we get playoff Josh Allen, like specifically this past year's playoff Josh Allen, 14 out of 17 games, yeah, he'll be the second best quarterback at least.
I mean, let's
like
just say 2 touchdowns, let's listen, 2 games, 9 touchdowns, 0 interceptions for Josh.
Exactly. Like that version of Allen that we saw in this playoffs, that's a different guy than I've ever seen realistically ever. Like not like Mahomes hasn't even had that type of stuff. I haven't seen him play even that well for a 2-game stretch in the playoffs. So that's tough. Like, I mean, it's hard to project that level of excellence, obviously, over a full season. But if he can play even mostly like that, he'll definitely be up there for me too. Though.
I think it's kind of interesting that none of us had the defending Super Bowl champion quarterback Matthew Stafford, or even mentioned him maybe being on the outside.
I'm a big.
Where
Stafford
is he on the list
guy.
for you guys? Where is he on the list for you guys?
Definitely top 8.
Top 8?
Yeah, I think for me, like if I were to do a top 8. Like, I'm a big Stafford guy, especially when he got moved from the Lions. I'm like, thank God he finally is going to play for an NFL team, like for the first time in his career. No offense to Lions fans, but again, like top 8. I think he's in that 8-ish tier. Like, I think that I'd probably go him, Burrow, Lamar at 8, 7, 6 probably right now for me. So the whole thing with that hold Stafford back occasionally is he does get into this mood, it feels like, where he's just like, I'm throwing the ball. I don't care if there's 8 guys there, which that does hurt his team a little bit. And that's when you saw that little like spell of bad play.
Sounds like Joe Burrow a little bit.
Jamar's he had a little bit of that too. He had a little bit of that too. I mean, that's the thing with Stafford. Yeah.
Stafford is the only guy who has more arm arrogance in the NFL than Josh Allen. Like Josh Allen, in his mind, there's not a single throw he cannot make. Like he's like, there's no window I can't throw the ball into.
Yeah, those guys.
Stafford
Herbert too, honestly, sometimes too.
Stafford will try some of the most insane deep balls you've ever seen for absolutely no reason whatsoever.
No, he just because he can. Yeah,
just because like let's just see, like let's try it.
Yeah,
he gets away with it more than he should too, but he does. So.
Oh man, well, I think that's gonna wrap it up for the football section. Thanks you guys for coming on with me and talking a little football. And I think we're gonna do a quick little transition, and I think you guys are coming right back on. So we'll see you guys in a little bit.
All right.
All right, that was a little football talk there. It was good to catch up with the guys there. It's been a little bit, but I wanted to talk about real quick the game between the Denver Nuggets and the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors were looking to go for the series sweep against the Nuggets, but were unfortunately not able to pull through. Nuggets did rally and win that game 126-121. Close game towards the end, but throughout the entire game, Denver really did have the lead, and Golden State was just trying to push it back into a game for most of it. So that being said, they live to fight another day, but I'll hand it over back to the guys for basketball.
Hey, Shay, what's up? Haven't seen you in a while, man.
Yeah, I know. It's been a little while, but just want to jump right back into it, I guess, with some talk about the playoffs, right?
Yep. NBA playoffs always tough, going on right smack in the middle of my finals, but hey, it is what it is.
Gotta watch them, man. Right? Gotta make sure you keep up with it.
Heat are playing right now, not even looking at the score.
I don't want to either because I'm a Heat fan. I don't want to. I'm not right now. I don't even want to think about it. So I'm just gonna.
Game 3 was disappointing. So obviously there was a game earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
Steph Curry and the Warriors taking on the Joker, and the Denver Nuggets. I've personally thought that Denver was dead in the water. Like, I really thought this was going to be a classic Showboat Warriors game, right? Steph Curry's, going behind the back and then taking a 35-footer, all that type of stuff. But credit to Nikola Jokic, and everyone's been, slamming on him because, he's going to get swept for the second year in a row. Look, the Denver Nuggets were already built as a team that is just going to try to outscore you. They play no defense. They have no defenders. No one on that team can play a lick of defense. They got 4 guys on the court who can't play defense, and their center's not a rim protector. They're giving up a lot of points every game, right? But the idea is, who's going to stop us? Okay, Jokic, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., Will Barton, Nashawn Highland became a thing, Bones Highland, one of the coolest rookies in the league. Monte Morris, even DeMarcus Cousins on the bench. Eric, it just goes down the list of guys that can put the ball in the bucket. But when there is no Jamal Murray and there is no Michael Porter, who can actually do it with the ball in their hands outside of Jokic?
And I think that's the problem here is you can say what you want about if they would have gotten swept, or they're still likely obviously going to lose this series. But if you want to make the argument that Jokic doesn't deserve the MVP because he's about to get swept again, look at these 2 rosters and tell me who the best player on it outside of Jokic. How many players would you have to go down a Warriors roster before you get to one of the players in the series being best outside of Jokic on Denver? How many guys would you go down?
All right, it's the whole Warriors starting 5. Right,
Yeah,
let's just say, for argument's sake, Jokic is the best player in the series. He's not.
We'll just say that. But
let's just say it's Jokic, right?
6, right?
And then it's the whole Warriors starting lineup.
Yep.
And then how many guys on their bench do we think?
I would say at least 1 or 2 for sure.
Yeah, it's it really is it's Jokic, 7 Warriors players.
Yes.
And then Aaron Gordon or Monte Morris.
Right, depending on the night. It's literally, that's the problem with this, is you can argue all you want that you can't be an MVP as a bottom 4 seed that's been talked about. You can't be an MVP of a team that can't get out of the first round. If they win 2 games in the series, that would be honestly an impressive feat based on what we knew going into this series. So I'm disregarding anybody who says stuff like that. If you really love Joel Embiid enough to say he's MVP, I'm not going to argue with you. You had a great year. But don't use this series or the outcome of it to try to say that Jokic doesn't deserve the accolades he's gotten or that he's going to get. That's something I think is just silly to even talk about.
I mean, I don't believe in the whole narrative that big men are more skilled now than they used to be. I just think they're allowed to do a lot more.
Yeah, that's fair.
Go turn on that Akeem Olajuwon tape. He's making passes, he's dribbling the ball, all that stuff.
There's been guys that can do that stuff for sure. It's just, but now there's more of an emphasis on it.
Statistically, Jokic has never existed anywhere else in basketball.
No.
This is a guy who can roll out of bed and get you 30 and 12 with 8 assists.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's essentially what he did tonight. I think he had almost a triple-double.
Yeah, it was close to that. Yeah, 33 points or something. It was, again, what he's able to do individually as the hub of the offense for that team. Even when he has his supplemental players around him with Murray and Porter, what he does around within that offense and allows everybody to do what they do, it's just so hard to defend because realistically, okay, he can score almost at will if he wants to. If he doesn't want to, or if they're not going to cover him with 2 or 3 guys, he's going to find the right pass every time. He's one of the best playmakers in the sport outside of position, rank, whatever you want to do. He is one of the best offensive hubs that we've seen in a long time. And coming from the center position is so hard to defend for most teams nowadays as well. They just don't have the guys that can bang with him either.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about the Nuggets. We know the Nuggets aren't coming back from down.
No, they're not. No,
they're probably going to get doors blown off of them.
I assume
California.
I assume.
But at their future, right? They're going to get Jamal Murray back and Michael Porter Jr. back. I mean, look, I like the team. The team's good. It's deep. It's got a lot of scorers. I think this is a team that's capped at getting a game or 2 in the conference finals. They just can't play defense. There's no other way to put it. They don't defend.
They need to at least find a couple guys that are good enough players that can be in the rotation. They don't have to be, big high price guys. They don't have to be guys that get 30 minutes a game, but they have to have some stoppers on this team at some point. It doesn't matter how much you can score in the NBA today. You can't afford to give up the type of points that they give up in droves against these, because again, as good as their offense is, there's offenses that are more comparable to them on offense and their defense does not stack up to the Warriors or any of the other teams that made the playoffs in the West. They're just not good enough on that end, even when everybody's healthy. They're just not.
What are you going to do with Jamal Murray, Bones Highland, Monte Morris, and Will Barton? And I'm definitely missing another one that's just blanking my mind right now. Just small guards who are really good scorers and can't guard you and me.
You can't have 4 or 5 guys like that in a rotation. You can't. You have maximum if you have 2 guys who are in that mold of, I'm going to get you 20 points or so, but I'm not going to defend my position. You can get away with that if you have enough guys to come in and help, hide them on defense. But if you're half of your third of your rotation are guys that literally can't defend their position, you can't succeed that way long term. You're not going to win 60 games or get a high seed or be able to win a playoff series consistently. You're just not going to.
And on top of that, if you're not stopping anyone at the top of the key, then players are coming in the lane, and who's the first help defender? It's Jokic.
Yeah.
So now you're getting your best player, back-to-back MVP, one of the 10 best players on planet Earth, in foul trouble.
Yep.
Like, he already has to sit a little bit because he's not greatly conditioned.
No, he's not the most, rocked up guy or anything. So, yeah.
But, I can't have him with 4 fouls starting the fourth quarter.
No, that's just
because if I'm the other team, we're just driving it to the paint every time.
Yeah, make him defend you or
get him off the court. The game is over.
It's over. Yeah,
he's that guy.
Yeah, so he gets more. He should get more credit for what he does on defense outside of rim protection. But again, at some point, if they can just run at him and, like you said, force him to either give up points they shouldn't be giving up or take the chance of fouling a guy in the lane. That's how you get him out of the game, or at least wear him down too. Because the more tired he gets, the better off you are. Even if he's going to end up taking on more of a playmaking role, opposed to being able to be the guy that's putting the ball in the basket. Which you'd rather him do that than be that force in the middle on offense.
And speaking of guys who can put the ball in the basket, a really good series so far that I don't think many people expected to be very good has been the number 1 seed Suns going up against I think originally they were the 9 seed.
Yeah,
Pelicans.
originally I think so. Yeah.
And this series has been really fun. And now, of course, unfortunately, Devin Booker's out.
Yes, yeah.
But Phoenix still able to grab a game without Devin Booker. Obviously, the Pelicans aren't your typical 9 seed because they added, CJ McCollum midseason. They got 2 rookies that started slow in Herb Jones and Jose Alvarado, who have just completely become great.
Love Herb Jones.
Rotational, not rotation, but rotation defensive monsters. And on top, Trey Murphy too. Trey Murphy can ball.
He's surprised, yeah, for sure.
And of course, it all goes back to number 14, Brandon Ingram.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
I mean, unbelievable. I mean, remember that first year he was in New Orleans, made the All-Star game, obviously. Yes. Then doesn't that first year with Zion Williamson. But now there's no Zion, and Brandon Ingram is free to do as he pleases. But now he's not the only scorer. CJ McCollum is there.
He's such a big add for them.
Played in a lot of big games in Portland, scored a lot of big buckets in Portland. And I think it was either the first play-in game or the second one where, CJ McCollum couldn't miss. No,
he was really – I think it was the second play-in game, if I'm not mistaken. He just could not – no matter what they did to him, they could run guys at him. It felt like he wasn't going to miss that game, and it got them to this point now where now they're fighting with the number 1 seed, which, like I said, I don't think anybody expected them to be even remotely competitive considering just how good the Suns were this year, the regular season especially.
Suns have no weaknesses, and now they have one, a big one. Who's just going to take the ball in isolation and score? The answer is nobody.
No, not on this team right now.
Chris Paul's not that guy anymore.
No, he's not. He's not. No, he's got to play make more than anything.
The Pelicans have 2.
Yes.
I would be – look, Phoenix is lucky to be up 2-1 also because that last game was really, really close. A young team with a young coach in New Orleans couldn't close it out. I don't think it happens twice. If I'm Phoenix, regardless of the Devin Booker injury, I'm playing the Pelicans without their franchise player. If I head back to the desert tied 2-2, I'm incredibly disappointed.
Yeah, with this team, even without Booker, obviously Phoenix is a great team. It's not like Booker's been the only thing that's gotten them to this point, but without him on the court, you don't have that guy that you talked about that you can just give the ball to and say, I need a bucket right now from the wing, especially. You just don't have that. And it's such a detriment to any offense, especially once you get into the playoffs and you don't have as much spacing and there's more emphasis on playing, half-court offense. You have to have that guy realistically to consistently get tough buckets. And with Paul at his age and, other guys just not being that type of player, they're not asked to do that. It does give the Pelicans a distinct advantage on that side of the ball specifically. So if they don't go up 3-1, I really feel like this series could be one of the biggest upsets we've seen because they certainly have what it takes to take this series if they can get it to 2-2.
Yeah, I would not want to be Phoenix without Devin Booker in a game 5 tied 2-2. The confidence of these young guys is just going to be
they have nothing to lose
through the roof. Yeah, and they're not all super high picks. Jose Alvarado's an undrafted free agent. Was Herb Jones a lottery pick?
I don't think he was a lottery pick at the very least. I think
Trey Murphy was there.
Right, that's right. Pick. Yeah, he was their early pick. Yeah.
So guys like Devontae Graham, who I believe was undrafted when he came out.
Yep.
And he can score. Not the greatest defender.
No, but he can get you buckets when you need it to. Yeah.
And another team that can score and scored at will earlier this afternoon is the Milwaukee Bucks.
Oh yeah.
The defending champs went into Chicago and without their second best player, put 120 points on Billy Donovan's defense, which according to him is something he hangs his hat on.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I get they don't have Lonzo, and Lonzo is, a really good defender. He's so long, very quick. But you have Alex Caruso. He's a good defender. Ayo Dosunmu is a pretty big guard.
Yeah,
he's got really long arms.
He's definitely got the wingspan to be a good defender for sure. Yeah.
You gave up 120 points to the Bucks without Chris Middleton.
When this series started, I was definitely rooting for Chicago all year. I just like the DeRozan move and how great he was for stretches of the season and everything, getting MVP consideration at some points in the year. But this was the worst possible first round matchup that they could have gotten. They play any other team, especially one of the other top 4 teams, I think they had a legitimate shot. But they just do not match up with Milwaukee. Even with Middleton out, like you said, they could not defend Giannis. They can't, there's just too many guys that don't match up well with them on defense for them to hang. And they're not a great offensive team unless DeRozan is really going off and guys are hitting their shots, which they just haven't.
You gave up 27 points to Grayson Allen.
Yes, exactly. That's disgusting.
10
That's disgusting.
Of 12.
Yeah, you deserve to lose just for that. You can't
at home.
That's the worst part too. Is I thought maybe with Middleton going out, could they get this to a 2-2 series, at least give themselves a shot? Maybe. But as soon as, because I was watching the game on and off, I was keeping an eye on it, I knew very quickly, I'm like, yeah, this isn't happening. They're not going to get it done. And this series, I think, is certainly over at this point.
I think this is very much over. I don't know where you go from here for Chicago. You did all your big moves last offseason. I think you get another season to just run it back.
Yeah,
right. Patrick Williams missed a lot of time. Caruso missed time. Lonzo missed time.
Having those guys back, would be helpful.
But man, you better win 50 games and at least get to the second round next year if I want to keep this going.
The problem is like I said, they need the right matchup in the first round to make it there. Once they get past the first round, if they can, then it becomes a whole other story because then anything can really happen there. But you have to get the right matchup with a team like this. And they got the worst one possible, and you're seeing what happens with it.
Because similar to some other teams, they've got 3 guys in the starting lineup who just can't defend.
They're not defenders. Yeah, they're not.
Levine, DeRozan, and Vucevic. They're just not great defenders.
They're not. They're even with sometimes they can have their moments. Levine, especially, I think, can have his moments just because of his athleticism. But Vucevic has never been a defensive guy. He's not a huge liability like some centers might be, but he's not great. And DeRozan he focuses so much on offense, and he's never been a great defender, really, even in Toronto early on, that it's asking a lot for him to defend at a high level for more than a couple of stints here and there.
And also, I got 3 guys who have been all-stars on other teams, elite scorers, and I'm scoring 95 points.
That's the worst part for me is they're not hitting their shots. And DeRozan had a rough first game, obviously. We know that. He really went off in their win, but it's just been inconsistent. And unless all 3 of them are on, I don't think they have the firepower to deal with the Bucks, even without Middleton on the court.
I think it's their 2 backup guards, Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, go 4-12.
Yeah, they're just not ready. They're not ready to be that guy in the playoffs. They're not.
Caruso took 1 shot.
Alex
Caruso, the starting point guard on the number 5 seed in the Eastern Conference, took a single shot.
Yeah, that's
they're the 6. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but that doesn't surprise me. But that's also not good.
When I have all these scores on the court, The other two guys on the court should have a lot of open looks.
You think so, but
And somehow Alex Caruso ends up with one attempt.
yeah, it's not like he can't shoot the ball either. Like, we know he can do that, but again, they don't know how to play. I don't think they know how to handle their top guys not having good nights. They're not equipped to deal with that situation at this point, and it's been very painfully obvious so far.
And Vucevic needs to get his ass in the paint. Man.
He really does.
I know this was said the other day that he only takes jump shots. It's not true.
No,
like, he scores in the paint, but 1 for 6. When DeRozan goes 0 for 5, and like DeRozan, fine, take as many threes as you want. Because he simply
honestly.
refuses to take them.
Yeah, seriously.
There was DeMar DeRozan took a 24-foot jumper today, and
I
it
know,
was worth 2 points.
I don't. Again, as much as I like DeMar is so fun because he's so different from what we've seen now, but like at the same time, I'm like, dude, like why are we doing this?
A foot and a half?
Literally just take a foot back.
Extra point.
Like I understand, like you get like the 16, 14 footers, whatever. Like he loves those, but like if you're gonna shoot from 20 plus feet, at least take a 3 because at least you might get rewarded better for it. Like it's just weird that with him, but again, not surprising with how he plays. But
so far we have no series over. Obviously, some of them are getting close.
Yes.
One that's getting close. Like let's not bury the lead here.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are about to be dusted by the Boston Celtics.
Yep. And I think we should have seen this coming just because, again, like this team, one, hasn't played together in any real stretch of the season that were meaningful, right? Like they haven't – I don't even know how many games Katie and Kyrie played together this season. It had to be less than like 20, right? Probably less than that. Maybe it's close now because they've played 3 playoff games, but – they just weren't equipped to win a series against a great defensive team like the Celtics and a team that has a closer with Jason Tatum, and you have Brown there too. Like they're just not equipped to handle it. And the whole Ben Simmons thing, I would say it's a loss, but he would have had to play for it to be a loss. So I don't even really want to talk about that whole part of it. Like, yeah, sure, he'd be helpful, especially as a defensive anchor, but I don't think he would have saved the series even if he was healthy and starting from game 1. I don't think it would have made enough of a difference.
I have a lot of things to say.
I'm sure. Yeah.
The head coach of the Brooklyn Nets.
I'm sure.
All right, Steve Nash. Like get ready. There's a list, man. Let's start off with the obvious one. Kevin Durant played 46 minutes in this basketball game.
Yeah.
And shot the ball 11 times. You can't call a couple plays for him, Steve? Do you run plays, Steve? Because their shot selection is horrid.
It's bad.
They take the only time they get good shots is if Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving decide to swing the ball for good shots. But that's not it. Andre Drummond plays 16 minutes. He had 3 rebounds. It's literally
the only thing he does.
The only reason he's in the National Basketball Association is to rebound the ball, and he had 3 rebounds. Seth Curry played 34 minutes. Patty Mills played 23. They played 57 combined minutes. Goran Dragic played 9. Goran Dragic, who, by the way, has been dominating for this entire series.
He has.
Like,
That's I was going to say, like,
series.
How is this man not – he has to play 30 minutes. He took
one shot.
Right. You have to play. There's no way. You're in a situation where you're about to get swept in the first round, and you have all these expectations despite everything that's happened to this team. And with this team and decisions that have been made by the players and other things, like despite all that, you're not. It doesn't feel like he's playing to win. He's not coaching to win, and that's what. If you're the Nets, if you're the front office, if you're fans, like how do you go into next year, even assuming things are good to go, like guys are ready to play, everything's good. How do you feel good about it going into next year with him as a coach right now?
The only way they were going to get a game in this series is if Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving both efficiently scored 35 points each, created at least 5+ assists for other players, probably for threes, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
That was the only way they were going to get a game. And guess what? That doesn't happen against the Boston Celtics defense.
No,
it's
they're
not
just
going
too tough.
to happen.
Now,
man, if only I had a couple dudes on the bench who lived and breathed buckets, Shane.
Yeah.
Now, Steve, Mr. Nash, he's got Goran Dragic on the bench, former All-Star, not that long ago.
No,
has been dominating this series, 9 minutes. I got LaMarcus Aldridge. Did you know that 2 seasons ago, LaMarcus Aldridge averaged 19 points a game for the San Antonio? 19 points a game. Yeah. DNP. Coach's decision.
Why did you bring this man into this situation if you're not going to let him do what he does? And he didn't.
2 first-round picks, one of them being Cam Thomas, one of the best pure bucket getters in the draft, showed it during his rookie season, right? Barely playing, average almost 9 points a game. DNP. But Patty Mills, again, 23 minutes. Credit to him. He went 4 for 5 from 3. Like, that's what he's there for.
He played well, yeah.
Seth Curry, credit to him. He went 2 for 4 from 3. But I need some of those minutes to guys who can get me a bucket that is not created by somebody else. Because the 2 guys tasked with creating buckets aren't doing it.
They're not. And that's, again, like, I understand, like, it's a playoff series. You're playing against one of the best teams in the conference, obviously the number 2 seed, great defensive team. At some point, I understand you go in your veterans, and even, again, Dragic didn't even play that well anyway, or play that much anyway, so you can't even say that he was relying purely on his veterans. But at some point, especially when your back's against the wall, why not bring in the guys that have proved, even though they're young, that they can go get you a bucket, like you said, without it needing to be Kyrie or KD creating it for you? Give them a chance because you have nothing to lose. You're down 2-0. You weren't, especially once you're down 2-0 to a team like this. Once they have their neck, their foot on your neck, especially defensively, they're not letting up. Like, KD can obviously go off at any point. Kyrie can go off at any point. But it's going to take more than even that to win a game against this team right now, especially if you can't defend them well enough to keep them under 105, 110 points. It's just not going to happen.
I mean, there was a lineup that Nash threw out there. I think it's Kyrie Irving, Seth Curry, Patty Mills, Bruce Brown, Kevin Durant. That was a lineup that he stuck with for a chunk of the fourth quarter. And guess what? It killed them. That ended the game. They lost the game right there because they couldn't guard anybody. Kevin Durant's playing the 5. The Celtics had uncontested dunk after uncontested dunk after uncontested dunk.
Just awful to watch. It's tough.
I would fire him.
That's where you're at, right? Like, that's the question that needs to be asked is, like, I understand, like, you know, Steve Nash, but, like, it doesn't matter if it's Steve Nash, right? Like, he has to prove that he can make the right decisions with this team. And there's been so much that's you can argue, and people will argue for him and say, well, look at what they had to deal with, what he had to deal with, you know, with Kyrie's situation and injuries and the James Harden drama. I was like, at the end of the day, you still have to be able to show you can coach with what you're given. And I don't think he did nearly enough, especially in this series, let alone the season, to warrant that treatment to say that he deserves unquestionably another shot at this with this team.
I don't think Marcus Aldridge has scored tens of thousands of points in this National Basketball Association. As recently as 2 years ago, he was averaging 19 points a game. In a game where Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant played 89 minutes of basketball and somehow wound up with 28 attempts. LaMarcus Aldridge, you can't just – I know LaMarcus, is it the health thing? I don't know. If it is, he shouldn't be on the roster. Like,
right, at this point, yeah, he's taking up a roster spot. Like, if he can't play, like, if he legitimately can't, for whatever reason, whether it's the reason he retired to begin with his heart, whether it's whatever else, then, yeah, he shouldn't be taking up a roster spot because you're not at a point depth-wise and – having these guys play together enough where you can afford to have a guy on the roster who cannot suit up. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, you brought him in here for a reason. If
you can't get LaMarcus Aldridge on the basketball court and tell him, LaMarcus, I need 12 points tonight.
Right.
Then why is he on the roster?
Yeah, he doesn't bring anything else, and he's not helping you sitting on the bench, like you said. So what is the point?
But if he's fine and you're just sitting him there, you're digging your own grave.
Indictment on him, yeah.
If Bruce Brown didn't all of the sudden become Michael Jordan in the last 2 games, they would have lost by 20.
Yeah, for sure. It wouldn't have even been close. There would have been no question about the games at any point.
This is one of the smartest basketball players of all time.
He can't get it. Can't figure it
out a rotation.
It's really strange. It is. It's very strange to watch. It's just been weird.
That was a great Saturday of games. The biggest blowout was 8 points. We can go to that one. Is there a rivalry brewing between the Raptors and 76ers?
I mean, these teams clearly do not like each other. And, you know, for good reason, I think, on both sides. Like, there's been this whole thing with Philadelphia in there and having Embiid and Harden play together and the foul palooza that you're getting as part of that. And, like, obviously that's going to rub certain people the wrong way. Some people aren't going to like that style of basketball. That's fine. But these teams clearly do not like each other. And I'm for it. I like that in basketball because we don't get it as much anymore. But right now, clearly Toronto isn't quite ready to compete. They had a really good season for what I expected from them. And then obviously you have Scotty Barnes winning Rookie of the Year. Congratulations to him. I think they have a really bright future. But right now, I do think there could be a rivalry down the road, especially seeing we'll see what Philadelphia does long term with this core they've built. But this series definitely is setting that in stone, where I think that you can have that as a possibility moving forward.
Yeah, and again, I'm not going to question Nick Nurse's decisions as a coach. He's got a championship.
Yes,
he's one of the best coaches in the league.
Yeah,
I love Pascal Siakam. Pascal
Yes.
Siakam's a great player. I think we need somebody else guarding Joel Embiid. He's just
he's
too
not
small.
equipped for it. He's not equipped for it. He's not.
I mean, the only reason Joel Embiid didn't go for 30 is because I think he's in pain. I mean, that figure seems to be bothering him.
Feels like it. Yeah, it seems like
he's going to have surgery after the playoff. I mean, that's the only reason. He has been cooking Pascal Siakam for a good week now.
For sure. It's not many guys are obviously equipped to deal with Embiid from whether it's size or just skill or whatever. But Siakam is certainly very far down that list of guys that you'd want guarding him. And I don't know. I mean, who do you think would be the best guy to be his primary defender on that team right now?
Simply because of strength, I'd say Precious Achiuwa, but their tallest player is Kem Birch. And
they don't have a lot of size.
If I remember correctly, Kem Birch is like 6'10".
Yeah, they do not have a lot of size on this team. That's definitely hurting them in this
he's
series.
6'9". That is their tallest player.
They really don't have a lot of. They have guys who have good length, wingspan, stuff like that, but they do not have a ton of heavier, taller guys to deal with Embiid in the paint. And again, that's part of that is matchups. Like, this is not a great matchup for Toronto, but at the same time, there's probably other things you could be doing to try to deal with Embiid than putting Siakam on him.
Another great game on Saturday was Utah-Dallas. Utah gets the win. Donovan Mitchell finally passed to Rudy Gobert and helped him win a playoff game.
Yeah, for sure.
I still think they lose the series.
I think so too. Especially with Luka.
Luka comes back, knocks off the rust for a cool 30 and 10, the 10 being rebounds.
Mm-hmm.
Because, again, the Mavs are another team that goes super small.
They do.
You would think that you dump the ball down to Rudy Gobert and he could get you a couple easy buckets or just get to the free throw line. We're not doing that either.
Not so much, no.
Utah's another team that's assembled. They hang their hat on defense, but really none of the guys on the court play any defense. They just funnel everything to Gobert.
He really do.
And
they
he protects
so much
the rim.
Yeah.
That's not going to work in the playoffs because you know what immediately happened? Dallas just drove to the paint for 4 games. Dallas has driven to the paint and kicked out for 3. Maxi Kleber looks like Dirk Nowitzki.
It's crazy. That's the problem with this Utah team, like you said, though, is they've built their entire defensive philosophy around we have an elite rim protector. Let's make him handle everything. And like at some point, not only does that just not make sense to build a defense like that now with the ability for guys to shoot from the outside, especially, but it puts too much pressure on that player. So if he does have a bad game or 2 or 3, not only is it highlighted more on him, now it makes him look worse. You don't have an answer for it now because you're not prepared to play in any other way. And without that rim protection being the main factor in the game, you aren't going to be able to consistently beat teams that can shoot the ball or play make like the Mavericks can with Luka, especially back now.
And their backup option is Hassan Whiteside. They keep the same philosophy in when he's on the court. And look, Hassan couldn't move that well when he was playing in Miami.
Yeah, he was already never a big.
He's strong and he's a block hunter, which is great.
Yes.
But he's like 34 years old now.
He doesn't have even the
he couldn't move right at 27.
No, he's never been he's never been able to move. His foot speed's never been great. He's just been so lengthy and tall, it doesn't matter.
I mean, if I'm Dallas, anytime Rudy Gobert is not on the court, we're just gonna set a screen. We're gonna switch Hassan Whiteside right onto Luka Doncic. We're just gonna watch the Luka show.
Just let him get
that's
cooked.
What it is, and you can probably score 125 points that way.
Yeah, that's probably that enough right there might get you a good chunk of the points you need.
You just can't miss. I think it was Richard Jefferson that said this game plan has Jared Dudley written all over it. Jared Dudley's an assistant now.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it really is just if they're going to funnel everything to Rudy Gobert, make the defense collapse, kick it out for 3. It is
make them prove they can defend the outside.
Carbon copy play every time down the court. Hey, desperate times, right? You were without Luka Doncic, one of the best players on the planet, for the beginning of the series. And you brought him back to a series where he's winning 2-1, right?
Mm-hmm.
This game didn't go your way, but in a perfect world, you were heading back to Dallas up 3-1.
Yeah, it was very possible. Like, again, 2-2, like, you can look at it disappointing because they won, obviously, 2 of the 3 games without Luka there, but I'm not really concerned about this Mavericks team going down, like, being tied 2-2 now. I'm not worried about it because realistically, no matter what you say about it, Luka's obviously making this a better team. It's just now that they got into a good rhythm without him there because they had to. Now it's about incorporating him back into what they were already doing well against Utah and letting him be the main point guy again there. That's all it's going to take.
I would bring Brunson off the bench that he can kind of keep doing his thing.
Yeah, because he's been fantastic.
Him and Luka don't have to butt heads. And you can maybe play Luka less minutes. I mean, sure, he's playing, but he's not healthy. Like, we know he's not.
He can't be fully healthy. There's no way. I mean, getting what you got out of him in game 4 was a miracle.
If Luka doesn't have to play 40 minutes, that's a plus because they have aspirations past the first round.
They do. Yes,
it's time to get out of the first round.
They have to. Yeah.
I believe we have 2 more series left to talk about. The other one is everyone's favorite right now, Grizzlies Timberwolves.
Oh, this is my series, man. Trust me, this has been something else to watch.
Credit to Minnesota.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
they do everything possible to lose these games, and they've gotten 2 of them.
Yes, exactly.
There's like Memphis realistically should be down 3-1.
You could definitely there's many different ways that could have been happening opposed to what we're at right now with the tied series for sure.
And again, Cat had a great game, but there are a couple possessions where I just don't know what he's doing with the basketball. And I got to check how many shots Patrick Beverley took this game. It's 8.
How many was it? Yeah.
Not as bad as I think he shot 15 times in game 3.
Yeah, you don't want that to be the thing that happens much. I'll tell you that much.
But another thing, Malik Beasley can't end a basketball game with no attempts.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about.
He's there for one thing. Like, I watched him here at Florida State. He's on the basketball court to do one thing. It's put the ball in the basket.
Yeah, that I don't understand. Like, the fact that they got away with it is kind of hilarious to me because, again, this guy is on the team literally to just be that. He's going to get buckets and nothing else. And that's fine. But if you're not going to be used in that way, then why is he here? Like, what's the point of him being on the court, frankly?
And to win a game and where D'Angelo Russell shot 3 for 12, it's big. Now, of course, Ja Morant for like 3.5 quarters was awful.
Yeah,
and
he had a rough game.
He turns it on. He does Ja Morant things.
Yep.
He gave, I think it was Jones, a great look at that 3 to tie the game. I mean, a fantastic look. Just came up short.
Yeah.
I think he got a little too excited.
Probably, yeah. I mean, he hasn't been in that situation much, so it's tough. Like, and that's the problem with this series. Like, you have 2 teams that are in very different spots in the actual order of things as far as the conference goes, but in very similar spots in terms of their level of playoff basketball that they've played, right? They're both very young teams that don't have a lot of playoff experience. And you're seeing that kind of play out where despite the difference in overall talent between these 2 teams and the record, they're in very similar standing in terms of trying to play their way through a playoff series for the first time in a while.
Yeah, this is going to be a great game 5.
I really hope this goes 7 games. I'm a big Grizzlies guy, like outside of like they're definitely my Western Conference team with being a Miami fan, but I hope this goes 7 games just because I think it's been the most fun series to watch. Like I just want to see more of it.
It's been incredible, and Minnesota, they're not like a team who goes through crazy injuries this season. They just underachieved.
Yeah,
like, they're incredibly talented. Like they just underachieved. They played bad basketball for a long time, but they're incredibly talented.
Yeah, Cat, Russell, man, just those 2 guys alone, and then you have all the supplementary pieces. Like, even as much as I like to make fun of Pat Bev because he's Pat Bev and it's easy to make fun of him, he's been good for this team. He brings an edge that they did not have outside of that one weird year with Butler where he took the edge and cut everyone with instead of helping the team out. But he brings that experience and that edge that they don't have without him. So,
and I know a lot of jokes get made about Cat. I make them too. I think he's incredibly soft.
It's easy to pick on Cat.
We in Minnesota now. Look, go back to Minnesota with a 3-2 lead on Memphis.
Yeah, do it.
Hey, by the way, this is already more playoff games in one series won by the Minnesota Timberwolves since 2004.
Yes.
Because that year with Jimmy Butler, they lost in 5.
Yeah, they did.
They've already have more wins in a series than they have since I was 4 years old.
Right. Like, again, we haven't seen this is the best chance they've had at actually making somewhat of a run since that 2004 season. And if they can get this series done, who knows how far they're going to be able to go, because the West, especially with Booker's injury with Phoenix, the Warriors seems like they're kind of up and down depending on the week or the game. They have their issues occasionally, as talented as they are. Who knows what they could do if they can get past Memphis, honestly. It'll be fun to watch.
That team you get in the second round is going to be Dallas and Utah, who we just talked about. We know Dallas can't play defense.
Nope. No.
And Utah acts like they can, but it's really just one guy.
Yeah, it's basically a giant 7'1" facade
And
of a defense.
He can't be in the paint if Karl Anthony Towns is camped at the 3-point line.
Nope. No way.
This is a really good shot for us to mess around and see the Timberwolves in the conference final.
I mean, either of these teams make it to the conference finals, I'm going to be ecstatic just because I think they're both super fun. But Memphis making it as a 7th seed this year with everything going on, it would be one super fun, but also just really good for basketball, I think, too.
And one more series, obviously, Miami, Atlanta. 2-1 Miami, final game in Atlanta until a potential game 6. We have an update. Heat are up 55-41 at the half. Courtesy of Jimmy Butler's 19 points. So
makes me feel better. But yeah, Miami being the 1 seed this year, like I was happy and all as a fan of the team, but I'm like, I don't know. Like Atlanta, just Young is obviously able to get you a game or two if you're Atlanta, just because he'll do that. He'll put up 40, 50 points or whatever he needs to do. But this game I think was really important because if they go 2-2 in the series, that's when stuff can start happening that you don't expect, and it just throws everything out the window a little bit for this team. But if they can hang on to this win, which, I mean, they're in a good spot right now, obviously, with the lead they have, just don't let Young go off in the fourth quarter, please. I don't want to deal with that. Then I think they're in good shape moving forward, and not only in the series, but in general moving forward.
I got a couple Victor Oladipo is playing, by the way. He's getting some of those Kyle Lowry minutes with Lowry out.
That's good. Okay.
Duncan Robinson has played 6 minutes in this basketball game and has not accrued a stat.
Is he going for the Tony Snell situation?
He has a foul, so I'll give him that.
Okay, so he did he made his presence felt a little bit. Okay.
No attempts. Tyler Hero shooting 1 for 5. Oladipo's 0 for 3. So an ugly offensive game for Miami, but I'm imagining it's uglier for the Hawks.
I mean, 41 points at half for the Hawks. That got to be gross.
The Heat are shooting 40%.
Okay.
29 from 3, and they've missed 2 free throws already.
Oh, jeez.
The Hawks are shooting 33%, 32 from 3.
Okay.
And are actually shooting 45% from the free throw line today.
That's pretty gross. I don't know who they're shooting their free throws. I haven't looked at the stats, but
it's Hunter's 0 for 2, inexcusable. You're a forward.
Yeah, seriously, get out of here.
Kevin Herter missed 1. I guess you get to miss 1 every once in a while.
Right.
Bogdanovich, a shooting guard, has missed 2.
Oh,
and DeLon Wright, point guard, has missed 1. It's inexcusable. You're not Clint Capella, right?
So basically, the difference in this game appears to be one team's ability to hit free throws. So
Onyeka Okongwu is 2 for 2.
Yeah, that you can't be shooting worse than him, because you're looking at him on the bench. He's looking at you on the bench like, what are we doing?
It's an ugly offensive game for the Hawks, but this is kind of how you have to live when your offense is built the way. Like we talk about Utah's defense being weird. Atlanta has one guy who can do anything with the basketball in his hands. And he has to create for everybody. And they have shooters. I'll give him that.
They do. Yeah, they built around him good. But
Bogdanovich was supposed to come in and be a scorer, and he's more of a shooter.
Yeah.
Lou Williams would have been that guy to come off the bench and give him something, but he's out.
Mm-hmm.
John Collins, great offensive player, plays no defense.
No, he's useless on defense.
Hunter, outside of being 0 for 2 from the line, is actually 3 for 4 from 3. He's been a really nice piece. He's like the one guy on the team who plays defense.
He is the one 3-and-D guy, actual true 3-and-D guy they have.
They were supposed to have 2 with Cam Reddish, and it just didn't work out.
No, it didn't. Yeah. I mean, I think it was the right move for both sides, but still, that would have been him being on this team and actually being able to produce would have been really big for them, especially now that they have made it to the playoffs.
Yeah, it kind of feels like this series is over.
Yeah, I mean,
if they can game of their life, game of their life. And didn't have to deal with Kyle Lowry for a half, and it still took a game winner from Trae Young.
again, this team is max. I think what they're capable of being right now with Atlanta, this is kind of their max. I think as the roster is currently constructed, they can make the playoffs, but unless they get like a really good matchup for them in the first round, or the other team just can't handle Young for too many games in a row, they're not going to make it far with how they're currently constructed. They need some retooling on this team for sure.
I mean, Trae Young's usage rate is unbelievably high.
Got to be what,
like
40-something% probably.
He's like 6'1" at most.
He can only take so much. I mean, as good as he is, he's
$170 soaking wet.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to run him into the ground. And on top of that, I get he has the green light, should have the green light.
Yes.
Trae Young. He takes horrible shots.
He does. His shot selection is just, again, like when you're able to do the stuff he does, I understand why he has the confidence to do that. But at some point you have to look at yourself in the mirror, and the coach has to look at me like, listen, let's try to get a better shot. Some of these possessions down there. Like, you have shooters, see if you can get a better shot. Don't settle for some of the shots that teams are letting you
30
take.
footers for no reason.
Right. Again,
12 seconds left on the shot clock. We're pulling.
That's the thing too. It's like, don't do that where you're not, because again, at the very least, if you're not going to defend, try to possess the ball a little bit more. If you're going to take those shots, then at least that way you're not giving up a quick basket on the other end that way. So I don't know.
Shot selection's an epidemic in the game today.
Yeah, that's fair.
Hey,
in general.
I play a lot of pickup basketball. Steph Curry's ruined this sport, man.
Oh my God. I see so many clips like of people like filming each other trying to play, and it's just some of the stupid shots get, but it's so funny. I'm like, yeah, okay. None of us are Steph. I'm sorry to break it to you guys. We're not doing that.
So that's it for basketball. Still in the heart of the first round. Couple teams facing elimination, but as of today, we still got all 16 alive.
Yeah, I'm surprised, actually, to be honest, that we're at that point. Like, I did think Golden State was going to clear things out today for sure, but good on Denver, like we talked about earlier, for stealing a game at least and making it a little bit more interesting. So
it was good talking to you, man. Thanks for filling in for Ben. Happy I didn't have to deal with Celtic stuff today. Hopefully by the next time I see Ben, it's like going to Game 7.
Right? Yeah. If you're lucky enough, I don't know. I don't think Steve's got it in him this year as a coach. So
probably not.
No.
But that is it, and I think we're coming back for baseball.
Yeah, I think so. Here we go.
And that was basketball right there. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. And I just wanted to talk about going into our baseball segment. We've got the NCAA and college baseball with the number one team, the Tennessee Volunteers. Their head coach, Tony Vitello, was suspended for 4 games after making contact with an umpire. I believe one of their coaches was originally thrown out. And then after that, Tony had to go up and shows a little Italian attitude, a little characteristic, and really got in the umpire's face and made contact, which ended up to him being suspended for 4 games. It did not matter, though, because the Vols would go on to win every single game. Tony did come back today for a game to get the series sweeps over the Florida Gators, but their team is still at the top of the baseball community for college baseball, and especially the SEC, and now they are still number 1. Tony coming back, it seems like he never left, but at this point, that team is still thriving, even though he was out for 4 games. I believe also there were reports on it. He was on campus during his time off. He was doing some charity bits. He was actually doing chest pumps for a couple bucks around the campus here at the University of Tennessee. Just taking a little time off. You can see this team is definitely, even though they are under some high critiques right now, they are still fun, a little relaxed, and we'll see how much longer they can hold on to the success of being the number 1 seeded baseball team in the NCAA. So that being said, we'll give it right back to Tim and Shane as they discuss baseball.
We're back.
Yeah, nice seeing you again. It didn't take very long this time again.
It's time for some baseball. Thankful to have it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the biggest story still, I think, is just the people are just happy that we're playing baseball in April. Like, we were worried we might not be, and haven't been talking, or we haven't really seen, we didn't get to see much of the season before we took a bit of a break here on the show. So definitely right in the swing of things now with the season. And I want to start just kind of looking at the standings so far for the season. Some interesting starts for some teams, specifically the New York Mets, who had a tough start to the year, finding out that DeGrom's going to be missing a good chunk of the season. And despite that, sitting at right now 12-5 after today's game with the best record in baseball through 17 games. Again, small sample size, but starting off strong for once, honestly. Then you have the Dodgers, obviously, and the Giants, Rockies, weirdly enough, and Padres in the NL West, kind of just all in this little group of teams that are competing right now, especially with the extra spots for the playoffs. All those teams realistically have a shot, especially obviously the Dodgers expected to kind of run away with it in the end, but all those teams have a shot here at the playoffs. The NL Central is predictably a bit of a mess, a jumbled mess outside of one team way at the bottom there that we'll talk about a little bit more later with the Reds. The Cardinals and Brewers leading the way, kind of what we expected. My Pirates, however, being a 500 baseball team at any point is kind of hilarious to me because I thought they might win, 50 games this year. So nice to see that. And in the AL, the Blue Jays, Yankees, Rays, all at the top of the AL East like we expected. So nothing too surprising there. Orioles still not doing much. Red Sox off to a slow start. We'll see if they can turn it around. And then we get to the AL Central. I want to stop with them for a second because, as you can see, nobody wants to win right now in that division. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. Like if your division leader has the same record as the Pittsburgh Pirates through 16 games, probably having a bit of a rough time to start the season. Twins managed to take the lead this actually right now because they had a walk-off home run by Byron Buxton today to get them back to 500. And then lastly, AL West, Mariners, really happy to see them up top there. Angels, Athletics hanging around despite having $0 in spent money this offseason, somehow hanging around in the division as well. And then the Rangers, who spent almost more money than anybody else, finding themselves in the bottom of the division. So definitely some interesting starts for some teams so far. But now that we got a chance to kind of recap that, see where everybody's at right now, I want to talk about how the rookies have fared so far, Tim. And there's some really big name rookies that have come up. We have Bobby Witt Jr. with Kansas City, big time shortstop, third base prospect, kind of just really good infield prospect in general. You have Julio Rodriguez for the Mariners, big time right field prospect for them as well. And then Spencer Torkelson, who's been kind of a slow start, but is one of the better bats we've seen come up in a while. It projects as really good first baseman so far. So to me, I think that if you look at, I want to start with Bobby Witt Jr. I'm not sure how much you've seen of the season so far with the rookies especially, but he's been a wizard defensively, but the hitting has not really happened so far. He's been one of the worst hitters to start the season. I'm not too worried about him just because he is a rookie. He is kind of known more as a defender at this point in his career. He's got some growing to do on offense, but really going to be a good fit, I think, long-term with this team and gives them a true superstar, hopefully, to get back to where the Royals were when they were competing and winning World Series in the mid-2010s. So excited to see about him. Also have Julio Rodriguez right now. I wanted to see, because I was curious how much he was really going to play early on, just because they do have a lot of additions in the outfield for the Mariners right now. But realistically, haven't seen a ton from him. I'm curious to see in a full season how much he ends up playing ultimately. We'll kind of have to wait and see from that perspective. And then Torkelson has definitely struggled a little bit as a hitter so far. I think that with him, though, he's such a young player, and I wasn't even sure if he was going to make it to the majors this year, despite the fact that they are trying to compete a little bit. So it makes sense to have your best players out there. All these guys are in a spot where they're probably going to struggle on offense this year. We're not going to have one of the Mike Trout rookie years or Bryce Harper rookie years where they're already one of the better hitters in baseball. But I think all three of those guys are building blocks and elite pieces for their teams going forward.
Yeah, I think I like Bobby Witt a lot.
Yeah, he's a fun player to watch.
Everyone wants to give the big money to the outfielders because they get the home runs. But guess what? In October, in playoff time, you know what we always remember? The shortstop who couldn't make the play, right? The third baseman who couldn't make the throw. And then we remember Derek Jeter, who makes the throw. Right? That throw lives in infamy. Like when it comes to playoff time and it's time to turn that double play or it's time to make that really important throw to first, having a guy like Bobby Witt Jr., these baseball players getting more and more athletic these days. They can make some unbelievable throws from some unbelievable arm angles. That's important. And I think, again, the hitting's going to come. It is hard to hit a baseball regularly.
Yes.
It is even harder to hit one off a major league pitcher.
It's tough, man. Like again, like all three of these guys have struggled at the plate so far, and obviously Witt has been able to be a plus player overall with his defense, especially being an infielder, really big time defender at shortstop and or third base, whichever they really need him to play. Rodriguez, his hitting, like I think his hitting, especially of these three, are the most likely to come around with enough playing time. But even Torkelson too, like he has the raw power numbers and showed it in the minors. Like all three of these guys, I think are going to be fine on offense at the very least at some point in the rookie years. It's just going to be, can any of them really get to the point where they are a plus hitter in their rookie season? If they can, their teams are going to be a really good spot, not only this year, but going forward with them as the star of the lineup.
Yeah, and I think for a team like Kansas City, look, probably not going to win a whole lot of baseball games.
No, they're not going
this
to.
Season
they didn't think so.
All about building blocks going forward, especially in a market like Kansas City. You're probably not signing the big free agents.
No, it's not their game. It's not.
You got to grow your own. This season should be all about, Bobby Witt's confidence at the plate, getting that swing perfected, all that type of stuff. Figuring out, can this guy be our franchise player? When we walk into the stadium on any given baseball game, we're going to see a bunch of number 7 jerseys.
Yes.
Like that's what it's about, figuring out, because again, small market teams, it's how you make money. You need to have a name to sell, and you're not going to sign that guy, right? You got to draft him or trade for him,
right?
And you got to develop him. That's why we see these teams have no problems trading their big players when it's rebuild time, because they don't want to pay him anymore, and it's time to get some prospects to see if we can get the next one.
Yeah, and realistically, like that's what a lot of teams do end up doing, is they find that one guy, right? The one that they can market, the one that can be the leader of the team, and everybody else around them, you're gonna, even no matter how good or bad you are, you're probably gonna end up not being here long term. So, just have a ticket ready to go to your next organization. But that can be, the Witt can be that guy for them that they can afford to hopefully bring in long-term, keep him long-term once his contract is up, once he's ready to be that guy. And similar to what the Rays did with Wander Franco last year, where he didn't play a lot as his rookie, but he's fantastic. He started off unbelievable this year, and now he has a huge deal to keep him with the Rays for probably going to be most of his career already. And that's the type of deals I think you're going to see more and more from the smaller market teams, or the teams that don't have a ton of money to play with. Get their one guy that they can market and hang around with for a long time, and then try to build around him with prospects and minor free agent signing, stuff like that.
Yeah, small market teams got to work, right? It is a grind.
Listen, I'm a Steelers fan, Pirates fan. The Pirates especially, like I know how it is. It's
when
tough.
The Yankees have a bad season, they open up the checkbook and they can get whoever they want, right?
Literally.
When the Dodgers, and I'm a Dodger fan, when they don't make it to the World Series, like, all right, it's time to open up the checkbook, right? They missed the World Series once when they lost to the Nationals. All right, it's Mookie Betts time.
Yeah, they're literally like, we're just going to go get a top 10, 5 player baseball just because we can. Like, it's literally what they do. With
Kansas City, it's like, all right, let's get our one guy, and then it's time to grind. We got to find 100%. The diamonds in the rough to build a team around him. And then probably like half those guys, if they're good, are going to leave and sign with, the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Cubs, stuff like that.
Right. And like they need to find, like, because they had their franchise player, the guy that they did keep for a long time, and Alex Gordon for a long time in the outfield. That was their guy that they had as the kind of the centerpiece of their team. And they brought in other guys that were prospects that came up through the ranks, and they were able to have success in that 2014, 15, seasons where they were able to make a World Series and then win one as well. So that's really the strategy they need to take into the future, is find your guy, like we talked about, and then fill out the rest of the roster around him to give them a chance to compete, and just kind of recycle guys as you need to. We've seen it work for them before, so no reason to think that it's impossible for it to happen again.
Yeah, it's if you're a small market team, all about the farm system.
Yeah, absolutely. Just
and
build
then
that
unfortunately, there's teams like the Dodgers who can spend all they want and have an amazing farm system
as well. Yeah,
it's tough. It's got to be frustrating to be a small market baseball team right now.
Especially like if you look at a team like the A's, right? They spent literally $0 this offseason. And again, now they're still 500 right now. Now, do I expect that to last? Probably not, but they are in a position where, because of their ownership and because of the money that they bring in and everything else going on with them, like they're not going to compete in the normal way. So same thing with the Pirates that I have to deal with is, despite a city of champions, like we like to call ourselves, the Pirates are the one kind of bad mark that we have to deal with constantly. And, maybe that'll change in the future. Maybe the ownership will get around to actually doing something. They've tried to do a little bit of stuff with like signing Brian Hayes to a 7-year deal and all that good stuff. But at the same time, no matter what, if you are a small market team or you have an owner that treats you like a small market team, you're going to struggle to consistently win unless you do great at trading for prospects from your older players that you don't need anymore, or just developing guys in the farm system. It's all about that for those teams.
Yeah,
absolutely. Speaking of a team that sold off their entire roster and is now trying to go down the gutter outside of their franchise player for the past 15 years, looking at the Cincinnati Reds, who are off to an atrocious 3-13 start to the season. Now they won today, so that's positive note, but they're 1-9 in their last 10 games, and again 3-13 overall, which their winning percentage right now, if you were to put that over a full season, you're looking at just over 30 wins for the entire year. Now, this is only 16 games. It's a very small sample size, but if that pace were to stay similar, even close to what it is, they would be at least the worst team since the 2003 Tigers, who won a total of 43 games, if I'm not mistaken. 43 games out of 162. Even that was almost a 27% win rate. So they're far below that to start the season. And if you look at this roster and what they got rid of, and especially from where they're at a couple years ago, it's no surprise. I mean, Joey Votto's the premium player for them still, even in his old age, and he's struggling at the plate right now. Like, he has not been able to get anything going. I don't expect that to last. I think that enough of their guys are going to be able to hit at some point, but they are bottom 3 or bottom 5 in almost every statistical category, offensively, defensively, pitching. It's just kind of a wasteland right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if they lost 120 games this year.
I mean, you look at this roster, it's not a lot of names that anyone who's not a diehard baseball fan would remember. And look, this is them when everything is nice and healthy, right? We haven't hit the patch of the season when dudes are getting hurt. Yeah. And maybe on the other side, they'll play against teams that got a couple guys hurt and pick up a win or two they shouldn't get. But the older Joey Votto gets, the more likely it becomes that he's the one that's injured.
Yeah, and
if
they can't afford
the one
that.
That's injured, are you going to be able to win a game?
They even with his struggles, like, you obviously expect him to eventually get back to at least a good baseball player as a hitter again. Like, he's too good of a hitter to not get to that point. But outside of him, I mean, they don't have Castellanos anymore. Moustakas is dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. Like, it is terrible. That contract, it's the only reason he's on the team is because no one's going to take that contract and not just going to DFA him. Like, they're not going to just cut him. Just, there's nothing there that you look at and go, yeah, that guy can be the reason that we win a couple games this year. There's just nobody you can look at outside of Votto that's playing well. And granted, I don't think they want to win. Clearly, they got rid of everybody for a reason. But man, I mean, to be a team that can win barely 40 games if they do it, it's just so hard on a fan base that was hopeful for a little bit when they did have those, key pieces like Jesse Winker that's now in Seattle, like guys like that aren't superstars, but really good quality MLB players. And they just threw it all down the drain basically this past offseason.
I mean, at what point do you consider, like, at the deadline moving Joey Votto?
I think that just simply so that way the fans don't burn the building down. I think that they'll probably avoid that. But again, like, if he's starting to hit again too, like if he is able to get back to where we expect him to be by the trade deadline, teams are going to call. I think that the Reds are smart enough to know that even despite everything they've done, the last thing that they can do to really completely screw themselves with the fans would be getting rid of Votto, unless maybe Votto asked them. Now, if he were to publicly say, like, yeah, I'd like to be moved, then that's one thing, because then he's the one who's actually initiating that. But outside of him doing that, I don't see him doing that. Doesn't seem like that kind of player. I don't see him getting moved, honestly.
38 years old. I mean,
yes.
If I'm the Reds, and I understand the fan base has a strong love for Votto, he is their guy, right? It's better for both sides. If at the deadline, I mean, look, like you just talked about it. Their roster's garbage.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere this year, next, or the year after, probably.
Why? I mean, get some prospect. I mean, you're probably not going to get this massive package for him because
he's 38.
When the playoffs conclude, Joey Votto will be 39 years old.
Yes, it's this point. If you are going to move him, I do think it would be the time. especially if he is showing, like, again, his bat wakes up at some point, like here in May and June, and we're getting into July. But I just wonder, the main thing I think that would hold them back from doing it is, can they get enough for it to actually make a difference? Like, if it's not a player that they think will make a difference in the next couple of years legitimately and not just filler players, I would rather just be able to tell my fans I didn't trade Joey Votto away. So that's kind of the conundrum they have at this point. It's going to take what they would have to get.
I guess you get to the point where he can be a 20-year Red.
Yeah.
2 years left on the deal. He's in year 18 now of actually playing.
Yep.
I guess that's what it is, right? When he retires, you can say Joey Votto, Cincinnati lifer. And he'd be one of the only guys, really, because in other sports, right, all they really have there is the Reds and the Bengals. I'm not missing a team, right?
No, I mean, as far as like major league teams go, that's what we're looking at with them. So
you got him, Anthony Munoz, even Chad Ochocinco left Cincinnati for a season.
He did, yeah.
So
many guys stuck that out.
I guess they just want to sell something to the fan base.
That's what I think it mostly is. Yeah,
it's dreadful.
They just, there's not much to look at. Like I said, maybe if you are Votto, maybe if he does want to play for another team, I think that if he were the one to initiate it, then fans would understand at least. But again, I don't know if that's how he wants to do it. I think he would probably rather value being a Red for his whole career at this point, because I mean, he could go to, even though they don't need him, the Dodgers, if they wanted to pick him up as just a bench bat like they did with Pujols last year or whatever, right? But like, he's not going to be the guy on any other team at this point. He's not even really the guy here because there's no guy for this team. But I think he'd rather just kind of stick it out, and unless he says otherwise here in the next couple of weeks.
Credit to the Reds, because I don't think another small market team would pay a 38-year-old as much as they're paying Joey Votto.
No, and that's the thing too that sucks is like they paid him, but they didn't do right by him by spending money on other players too. They didn't maximize that window that he had left, which sucks for him. But I think as long as he has a decent end to his career, at least he's going to be able to look at Cooperstown here in about 5-6 years and see what happens from there. So, yeah, that's really all I have for baseball right now. There's not much really super interesting going on so far in the season. And we're only about 16, 17 games in for most teams. Definitely once we start getting closer to the summer and we see teams really start to stand out with a higher amount of games played, then we'll be able to start seeing who's really showing up this year and who's going to be contending. So,
when do we get a potential Fernando Tatis return?
From what I've seen, I think maybe sometime in June, if they're lucky. I mean,
if he takes care of himself.
If he takes care of himself, that's something too. Like, I'm glad you mentioned it. Like, a guy like him, I just want to see him play a full season at some point, and I'm worried we might not really get that. I don't want him to be like a true Troy Tulowitzki situation where all the talent in the world, all the power as a shortstop, all the hitting capabilities, the defensive talent and the throwing needs better, but he has all the athleticism for it and just can't stay on the field. That's what's going to really.
And there's no excuse to do what he's doing. His dad played
in
college, right?
No, he knows.
Like,
he shouldn't.
You've been around the game. Like, you've been around professionals. You just signed a $300 million contract, and you're riding motorcycles?
And you've played like 200 games in your career.
Playing soccer on the field while you're not playing in the game? Like, dude.
Yeah, he needs to clean that up a lot for sure. Just from an image and also his own sake, just needs to clean that up big time.
And credit to the Padres. I think they have, 10 wins, and he hasn't even played?
Yeah, they're still – and that's the thing is this team is legitimately good. It's not just him making up for deficiencies. Like, obviously, they want to have him, but it's not like this team isn't capable of competing without him. They've done a really good job of sticking around so far in the West. So.
And as a franchise, it's time to make the playoffs. Made all that noise last year.
Yeah, missing out last year, that was really tough for that team.
If I'm him, I'm itching to get in there. Like,
oh, yeah.
Like, we have all this talent. Like, realistically, if they hit their ceiling, they could make a run. Now, the issue is, are they going to hit their ceiling when you have personalities like Manny Machado?
Manny has been a good player for them, but yeah, he's always going to be a guy that just, from the mental side of things, it's a little bit iffy with him. But, fun team to watch, especially when they're fully healthy. So, with the expanded playoffs this year, who knows what can happen? I mean, the Braves already made a big run last year out of nowhere, like adding a couple more playoff spots. And
it's possible without Acuna. Like, there's no excuses.
No, yeah. I think that's going to be everything for baseball tonight. Thanks for joining me, Tim. I know that kind of short notice we had to throw some stuff together, but fun talking basketball with you too. So I'm hoping for next week we'll get to keep doing stuff.
Yeah, it was a good time, man. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, guys. Good insight there on what's going on in the freshly start of the new baseball season. But I just want to thank everybody for coming in, stopping at the block, and checking us out. We'll be back with you guys next Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Hopefully, we will have some NFL draft updates for you guys, as well as possible second round basketball. NHL playoffs are coming up on the way. A lot to get into as the next couple weeks start here. But we'll see you next time. Thanks for checking in. Make sure to go and look at all of our social media, especially our Twitter at ATB_network. Until next time, see ya.